This is Jordan Grace, and you're listening to the Social Suplex Podcast Network.
BWB, this is One Nation Radio. You better get it right. Rich Latta, James Boyd came to give them life. The Blackest Wrestling Podcast has come to kick all ass and drop it 6 feet if they're kicking trash. Word, let me welcome y'all to something different. And if you dig it, man, you should let some friends listen. We be getting it in, this on the regular, dude. Ravish and flow, but this shit rude. See, James don't rap, so I had to break it down. The whole network, man, we coming for the crown. Raps in the columns, I keep them both covered. Making the beats too, so the listeners can bump it. Hit us with the rating, yeah, I'm saying it's a 5. Before you hit it, talk, bob your head side to side. It's One Nation Radio, and this is the beginning. It's Rich, and I'm here with James. It's time to listen to One Nation.
We got to unleash the power of the pyramid.
This is Mike Sempervive from WrestlingObserver.com. Check me out on Wrestling Observer Live every day. And also check out your boys, Rich and James, on One Nation Radio.
This is Kenny Omega. We're listening to One Nation Radio. Check it out, guys. These guys know what's up. Big Kenny Omega fans, that's all that counts to me. Goodbye and good night. Bang.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this special edition of One Nation Radio. This is the 2020 review for WWE / NXT / NXT UK / 205 Live / what else they got? Evolve. What else they got?
Who knows?
We're not covering 205 Live.
Raw Underground.
Raw Underground is on a brand inside of a brand. So yes. And with us we have the implications of wrestling headlines. He's actually wearing a wrestling headlines t-shirt to make sure that is no longer the name of a porn site. So what's going on, Imp?
It's a new year. It's 2021. It's, as we all know, that means that everything's finally over. We can all just return to life. That's how it works. Yeah, we'll go to wrestling shows. We'll go to WrestleMania. It's all perfectly fine. Yeah. Back to what it was in February. It's been that long. It's been that long.
Yes.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to going, taking the piss out of a lot of it, but remembering the show last year, a lot of it was piss taking. Then the odd time you get to praise them when we do the top 10 list. We'll shit on them for about 45 minutes, 50 minutes, and then we did some good things.
Yes. Rich, we've never really talked about this before, but we once upon a time were contributors to Lords of Pain Radio. You more than me, but we both were contributors. We did the review shows for Monday Night Raw and also Tuesday Night SmackDown. Can you believe that we used to work for a porn site?
I have no idea. Like, what is the porn site gag?
Lords of Pain. If you were to type in Lords of Pain into a Google search, you would assume that'd be a porn site that'll pop up, wouldn't you?
I mean, I wouldn't assume that, but I could see like the shoe fitting perfectly.
Rich, we're talking about WWE, so let's talk about this, right? We, at one point in time, Becky Lynch, Charlotte Flair, and Paige were going to be in a faction called the Submission Sisters? Or the Submission Sorority.
Oh, yes,
and that got changed because it sounds like a porn name. And a porn site actually existed with that name. Lords of Pain sounds like... Absolutely. Anyway, we're digressing. We have 45 minutes to get this done, or just about 50. So, 2020 WWE. Imp, what did this year mean to you, and what did this year feel like for you in the E?
I don't want to say reset. I think it's more. They were absolutely forced to finally focus on, as in they couldn't just bring in old people because they could just come in and die. So they had to actually invest in their current crop. I mean, like, I say that, as we're recording this next week, it's Raw Legends. And
God, I didn't know
as
that.
in this Monday. As somebody asked me, because I've taken like 2 weeks off after New Year's and Christmas, just not done anything since TLC. And I was asked, like, are you going to be doing Raw? I was like, It's Wrestle King. Oh no, it's Wrestle Kingdom. Oh, I'm going to miss Raw Legends. What a shame. I've got to cover Wrestle Kingdom instead. Oh, that's such a shame that is. But it's like, in terms of that year overall, it's been such a massive mix. Like, Drew McIntyre winning the Rumble is like a statement of finally moving on from Brock Lesnar, but let's be realistic. Come on, he loses, then wins it back again. What's the point? So it felt like that was a really good win. But then of course, pandemic happened and they were forced to finally focus on their current crop of guys and build those people up. And I feel like the Thunderdome era has been really, and the PC era will long term be really good for them. Especially when you look at McIntyre and Reigns, they finally got two like top champions who feel like they're worth a damn. And how many years has that been since that's been felt? But the rest of the show is Jesus Christ. It's so bad. Like, prime example right now, New Day versus Hurt Business. They are two of my favourite factions in WWE. They've both been absolutely killing it this year, especially Hurt Business. MVP's been a sensation on Raw. However, they have faced each other pretty much every single week since the draft. And that is their mid-card. It's full of matches you've seen 27 times before it hits pay-per-view.
That's that good old WWE 2K Universe booking.
Yeah, to keep the feud going, you've got to face them the next week. Otherwise, the AI just can't handle it. Yep. Like, no. Yep. Like, we can handle it. I remember. It sticks out more because of AEW. Obviously, because they know this special thing where people have got this incredible ability to remember. And I'll say a reset year for WWE, what it's felt like, but really they've had their hand forced by circumstances to finally invest in their crop of talent. But we'll see come February, come Royal Rumble, how true that is. Come the biggest rumour of Goldberg, for God's sake, challenging Roman Reigns. We'll see. Have they changed or not? So kind of a reset, to give you a long-winded answer to your question.
Yeah, man, I felt like you said, I like Drew McIntyre's championship reigns. I like Roman Reigns being champion with the tribal chief. The rest of the promotion pretty much getting the bin from there. I like Sasha Banks. But even then, they didn't let her have finishes in her matches for like 3 or 4 months. So, love Io, love Asuka. But you're talking about them going to their bottom level of creativity, of like just falling to the absolute depths of hell, like with the Fiend. And it's just like, this is not a promotion for me. In lots of ways, like whether it's like, hey, I want some top end wrestling. Oh, well, you'll get it, but it might just come out of nowhere. It might be on a show that like you have no motivation to watch. It might be, it might have all this dialogue in the middle of the match. You know, it might be turned into a Shakespearean performance. They may be trying to reshoot and edit the whole match, like so it's not actually a match, and it's like. I think the pandemic unfortunately showed WWE's lack of adaptability in a lot of areas, but I feel like there are people that would insist that they've done a lot of positive things this year, and if you can I think I would be a lot more negative if I didn't look so favorably upon their championship belts this year, like the top 2 belts. And NXT, don't even get me started.
So it's really weird. Like, I have little to no interest in watching the television that the main roster puts on. I will watch pay-per-views. And I will watch any match that pops up on a recommended thing on Cage Match or Grapple, or someone talks about, there was some great match. I will do that. The problem is that almost never happens. That almost never happens. And for all of the good work they've done with Drew McIntyre's run from Royal Rumble all the way to now, and what we got with the promo wise from the Edge and the Randy Orton feud, and their greatest wrestling match ever thing, and what we got out of Sasha in this year, and Bayley and Asuka, quite frankly, in the Tribal Chief Roman Reigns stuff with Jey Uso, which like I don't necessarily find necessarily as compelling as others do, but like I think the stuff that Roman is doing is great. Few and far between. I rarely ever hear anything that makes me want to tune in to watch a particular special episode of the main roster. Anything. I just don't care. I've been burned out. I will watch pay-per-views. I will watch what's sent my way, like I said, but that happens so rarely that it's like, what's the point? Like I am I guess a casual fan. I guess that will be the thing. I'm a casual fan of the main roster. NXT, I watch every week. Wrestling wise, it gives me what I want from the matches. This year, it just was left, it was completely left broken because of the pandemic. And it trying to keep up with the Joneses that is AEW Dynamite, and you know, comparing it to its previous self is a disappointment. Comparing it to AEW is a disappointment. It lost its sense of self this year, trying to, you know, not do its show as Triple H told us it was going to be. It has turned into hot shotting. And it has turned into a hierarchy of old timers and OGs and people coming back for like fucking high school reunion and just running through people that were supposed to be, you know, higher ups in certain divisions. So from Charlotte to Finn Balor to Johnny Gargano to Tommaso Ciampa to Undisputed Era, they all had quality in the stuff that they did, but it also left you feeling like, yeah, this is a sham of a brand promotion, whatever you want to call it, because of the fact that like this is a third brand / developmental brand, and while trying to do both at different times, a lot of times feels like they're doing neither.
Yeah, I think this was the year that that NXT really, like, it became what Rich Latta said it was in 2018. But now the Emperor has no clothes.
Well, now the wrestling's not as good. Like, you can live with the, look, I'm not trying to romanticize, and I was never trying to romanticize NXT or any other promotions I watch, except for New Japan, and that got killed quick with the evil stuff, but this year. But, like, these are businesses, right? And businesses have different objectives, and WWE's objective is they want to be in on every nickel bag that gets sold. I don't know why, but that's their thing. And so, yes, obviously this was indie storage, or NXT was an indie storage unit. But the fact that it became, with the pandemic shutting down, and they couldn't get anybody new because of someone like, as an AEW and New Japan being, you know, more or less shut off, and contracts have been ratcheted up and extended on their end, is like, they have made themselves stale, whereas opposed to like, it used to be, you know, NXT was, we bring you here for 2 years, you do your thing, we treat it almost like you're almost like a one and done in college basketball, to where, like, you know, instead of you being some guy from high school that no one's ever seen before, you go to Duke or Carolina or Kansas or Kentucky, and you do your thing, you get yourself a brand, make yourself, you know, like a John Wall or DeMarcus Cousins or Zion Williamson or something like that, and then you go to the league as a star. Now, it's had a real reverse effect. We see these people be great for a year and a half, 2 years, and then
they die.
And then because we know of what they're capable of, we expect something similar or a reasonable facsimile of what they did to get over on NXT, and then they go and do absolutely, they either like completely deconstruct somebody over time, like a Ricochet, or they completely have them do something else, and we're just like, why the fuck? And in our minds, we're like, why the fuck would you do this? We saw the pathway to success somewhere else. It's like watching Anthony Davis, right, in Kentucky, beat his shot blocker defender guy, And then, like, the first thing you do when you get into the NBA and draft him is, like, you make him point guard. It's like, why are you making him a point guard? That makes no fucking sense. And, like, that is, and that's the thing is, like, if NXT were never on the network or anything else, like, yes, we would see less good wrestling out of the WWE. However, like, we wouldn't have these ideas of, you know, oh my God, like, they're doing this with this person that was doing something else on another brand, another, you know, place in WWE. And like, it's hard to reconcile that in your mind of letting that go. And it's like, we see it so much, and every time, almost the vast majority of what we see is lesser than for these individuals. So it feels like, well, then what the fuck? You know what I'm saying? Like, and that, you know, that hurt it for a long time. And now we're seeing this part where WWE was like, or NXT was like, flat out all the promotions I follow on a consistent basis, this promotion handled, or adjusted to COVID worse than anyone. Worse than Stardom, worse than New Japan, worse than AEW, a lot worse than AEW. And like, even if they were in the groove of doing its normal thing, like, this clearly affected it and made it worse to where, like, you know, they weren't hot shine like this until the pandemic came around. And when they had to start doing the stuff with changing the camera angles for watching the matches, you know, empty arena or no empty arena, fans or no fans, plexiglass or no plexiglass, chain link on the plexiglass or no chain link on the plexiglass, Terror Dome or no Terror Dome, mini Terror Dome or no mini Terror Dome. All of this fight or Raw Underground, it was just a mess. Cinematic wrestling, like, it worked one time and then they went in, like, similar WWE fashion.
Going to overboard extreme.
It works one time, so they keep doing it over to, what do you call it? Diminishing returns. And it's like, the Boneyard match worked because it was unintentionally funny, and they were like, well, it's unintentionally funny and went crazy, so let's try intentional funny. And they're not really that good with intentional comedy. So, like, for me, it was just like, I felt like this year was the main, you know, like you said, like, if not for a certain number of courageous men and women to carry the show on the main roster, and, you know, NXT just, you know, like, regardless of whatever you want to say about it, like, it's always going to be a match factory. I don't really know what to do. Like, you know, the roster positioning's all over the place in the main roster. In, quite frankly, the men's division NXT. Like, the only thing you really can look at is, like, the women's NXT division for roster positioning. And you know, it's...
Well, Wrestling Headlines, we're doing the end-of-year award stuff.
That stuff coming out?
Yeah. So that is... Myself and Sir Sam are recording that show on January 9th. So that'll be next weekend, we're recording that. Mm-hmm. So we'll have our final results eventually. So it's given me a sneak peek. And I think the most telling thing about the results so far is a complete lack of NXT just anywhere. Be it top male wrestler, female wrestler, promotion, any show, they're not there at all. And because with the voting, we open it up to all the people who visit the site. There were just no nominations for anything. I think the only guy who's doing all right is Karrion Kross for Rookie. I think he's the only one. And obviously between him and Dominic.
And that's 5 matches.
But that's it. No one else. Like, no other award. And I feel like that's really, really telling. Just this year, they've completely fallen off the radar. And I cover NXT for Wrestling Headlines quite often with James as well to help me through the pain. Sometimes I've seen the card and I've been like, you know what, I won't subject James to this. It'll be alright.
It's amazing that you've even seen the card sometimes, you know.
I took one look at Halloween Havoc and I went, I'm not that mean. I'll just leave it off. I'll cover that. I'll do that in 30 minutes when in the show. I was like, yeah, it was. So somebody's been covering NXT every week since, I can't remember. I think it was July. I think it was end of July. It'll be on my Skype calls whenever I first had James on. And it was around that time. I've been watching it every single week and covering it. And I put out a column earlier in December about how NXT's just fallen apart. I mean, we've hit on every single note I put in the column.
Right.
But it was about how going into War Games, I just didn't care. And like coming out. I didn't care for it going in, and coming out was like, I mean, the EO in a trash can, that's a good meme. Right. Aside from that, there's
an ominous story, and ominous for like the future whenever she does get to the main roster.
Yeah, I'm surprised that didn't immediately become a meme. Something like that. It's like, surely it will have been. But yeah, I feel like that's really just emblematic of what's happened with NXT this year. I just didn't really care for a lot of it. It became a lot of throwing cool stuff at the wall, and we had like 3 ladder matches in the space of 4 weeks or something ridiculous like that. It's just, they're giving us sometimes really entertaining matches, but do I really get outside of the women's division? There isn't really much that I'm caring about at all. I'm repeating what we've already said, really. Yeah, and it's fallen off this year.
Like, we could do a mini dive through the main roster and then go do a mini dive through NXT. But, Royal Rumble, McIntyre wins the Rumble. Like, first off, the event is just like, everything feels so super secondary because like it's fallen, or at least over in America here because of the death of Kobe Bryant. Everything was flat. Like I went to a watch party with some of me and Rich's friends, and I was like sitting there watching. And I was just like, why am I even here? Like, why? Like, you got the Becky Lynch and Asuka match, very good ass match. You get the Royal Rumble, which is the Royal Rumble event in itself because of Brock being in front end of it and him like throwing around people and everything else. And, it changed the status quo of a Royal Rumble match. Like, people think it's like one of the greatest Royal Rumble matches of all time. And like, that's, I don't know, because I think all Royal Rumble matches for the most part, they're not, they're fraud wrestling matches. So it's like, it's for me, I'm over it. But yeah, like, it was a success, absolutely. McIntyre got super over. He threw Brock Lesnar out on his ass. Is there anything you want to talk about Royal Rumble? Because I'm.
Yeah, I got nothing for you. Like, Charlotte.
Oh shit! Yeah, Women's War again. Or Women's Royal Rumble. They bring up Bianca Belair. She eliminates like 10 people. She's incredible in it. Shayna Baszler eliminates a few people too in shorter span. She's not the Iron Woman like Bianca was. Which leads up to the final two is Shayna and Charlotte. They tease a spot where she's going to skin the cat and throw Shayna out. Shayna survives it the first time, and then they do the same spot again when Shayna gets thrown out and makes her like a dumbass, and Charlotte wins. I think she came out at 30.
Shayna was 30.
Okay, never mind.
No idea for Charlotte.
Withdrawn. So Charlotte comes in late though, and she ends up winning it, and we're just like, okay, so that sets up either like the 10th Charlotte and Becky match that we've seen in the last like year and a half. And it's one thing when it's like these matches are lower on the card, but like, no, these were like the things that carried 2018 SmackDown at the end of the year or that, that last third of the year. Those two fighting each other to tooth and nail. And then, all right, then you look at the other champion. Oh, the other champion is Bayley. Charlotte and Bayley just went out there and wrestled each other the entire fall of the summer and fall of 2019. Like, so these are two stale matchups. So what the hell are we going to do? Lo and behold, I think the very next day on Monday, Charlotte comes out. I don't know what she was going to say, but obviously it didn't matter. Gets cut off. Rhea Ripley comes out and says, come challenge for the I'm the champion. I want you, Royal Rumble winner, to challenge for my belt. She challenges a challenger. And it was like, yo, what is this? Why? Who? I get what you're trying to do. You're pumping a main roster person importing them into NXT because you're still chasing after Dynamite. And it was successful during Survivor Series.
Wrong one.
Right. And it was successful during Survivor Series. So I will give you that. But the fact that you chose Charlotte after your hardest core fan base has told you they don't give a fuck about Charlotte in that way for 2 years now, is just like, wow, what a tone deaf message. And sure enough, she showed up on NXT, she popped 7,000 viewers, which is just a disappointment. It's embarrassing that they subjected Charlotte to that. And then she proceeded to, in every encounter except for one, when Bianca and Rhea were together and they jumped her, she whooped in every physical competition, Bianca and Rhea, then went into WrestleMania, had a great match, the best pure wrestling match at WrestleMania, easily by a country mile. A match I gave 4 flat stars to. She taps out Rhea Ripley. They had a chance to make a new person that you can have a program with Charlotte in Charlotte on the main roster. It could have been the Kevin Owens, John Cena 2015 thing. They decided not to. She taps out, and she's on NXT, and like I said, the 7,000 rating. The Io interaction, because Io had won during WrestleMania time, had won that ladder match for contendership. They had that match that we all knew was going to a schmoz, and sure enough, it goes like 7 great minutes. And missed moonsault from the top rope to the floor. Kendo stick comes out. Rhea comes and makes a save for Io. And that was their road to get to In Your House. And you're just like, and that really was like the beginning of them shooting you, hot-shotting you cool stuff that you would want to see that ultimately is going to end up in some type of schmoz or something unsavory that you just like, you're fucking me. I know what this is. You're about to fuck me. You're dangling this carrot, and then I go reach for the carrot, and it's a dildo instead. I don't want the dildo. Don't do that. That's gross.
It's that NXT do that a lot now. There, I feel like I do want to talk about the Rumble and that stuff, but yeah, one of the weeks, one of these past few weeks, I was just like, almost every single segment or match was like that. Which I thought it's gotten worse and worse as the year's gone on, where we are now. It's, especially since they started doing the specials in between the takeovers. So it's, as soon as they started doing that, it's just, well, we've got to build this next thing in 3 weeks. Let's do the schmoz finish. It's just, everything's got a screwy ending. You don't get any finishes until the special, but then the special sets at the takeover, so you don't really get an ending at a lot of that stuff as well. It's, yeah. It's like you get the same match now 2 or 3 times within like 2 months. It's got the main roster problem.
I want to first talk about the tribal chief Roman Reigns before we run out of time. So for years and years on this very podcast, we have railed and told them to turn Roman Reigns heel because it would be awesome. He would figure it out. People would like him, and y'all would finally get where you want to get with him. So when he's 35 years old, he finally gets to turn. And what do you know? It works out. Splendid reviews from everyone. And the guy's a natural. And we all knew it. And it's funny how he got to do this, but there's no fans in the arena to like really give him the boos they wanted to give him for all these years. And for me, it's incredible that this guy lasted this, like, he got to do it, actually, because I wonder what was the thing that finally just made them say, fuck it.
Probably no gate. Probably no gate. They were like, we're under no obligation to try to draw any house shows. We don't give a fuck. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, didn't he say the same thing? Apparently Charlotte's told them, where it was like, I want to do it on my terms. I want to have a planned out story or arc or character or something. I don't want to just come back and you have nothing for me. I want a plan. Because to speak about Charlotte, that's what the main issue was it, and it screamed it. Shayna Baszler was meant to win the Rumble.
Right.
They were like, no, let's have Charlotte win it. She's a big name. We can have her win and do WrestleMania thing. Cool. But I mean, Shayna's still wrestling Becky.
Right.
So what the fuck is Charlotte doing? Now she's the winner. So now what? And then you end up with the Rhea Ripley thing. Who wins that? Well, I don't know. There's not a plan here. Charlotte wins it. Now what? Well, I don't know. There's no plan. So it just kind of topples onto one thing or the other. Yeah, and Roman Reigns, him coming back and absolutely killing it. And you're seeing the kind of the promise of that, like a character with an arc, with a plan. Even though he may not have like opponent plans and arcs, he's got a character one for him. With Jey Uso and all of that stuff. So there's actually something to work with, and my God, it actually works. The benefit of like that compared to Sasha and Bayley, where Sasha and Bayley, they want them to feud. that's it. They haven't really got anything. And to see, because the Fed defense go for the Bayley Sasha story when there was criticism in comparison to Hangman and Omega. Because Hangman and Omega, I'm assuming you've already talked about this quite a bit.
I've never heard the two compared to each other. I'd be interested in hearing it.
Neither am I.
Yeah, so it's specifically about a tag team that have been together forever and for a while, and they're bubbling under the surface about splitting. Then they do split, and what happens next? AEW kind of bubbled under the surface. There's the split, and there's the emotional consequences of the split or the reasons for it. Kenny Omega goes straight for that title, and Hangman Page just like the personal repercussions of it all, and him possibly joining the Dark Order and all of that storyline coming off of it. Bayley Sasha, as soon as they split, they are immediately feuding with each other. I think Bayley takes out Sasha with a chair, does the spot with the chair, whatever she did. Yeah, and then she's back in a week or so. It's like, all right, feuding within 2 weeks at the pay-per-view. Now they've done the match. Well, now what? Well, now Bayley doesn't have any opponents. You've done the match. so now Bayley's not on TV.
Part of the year. Like, they did this in October. Like,
yeah.
Like, as far away from WrestleMania as you can get.
And then you compare that to Hangman Omega. It's still building. It's still bubbling. You're still getting everyone excited to see the match. Where is that excitement now for Bayley Sasha? And that was the comparison I was seeing, the Fed defense of Bayley Sasha being this fantastic, amazing feud. And I was like, but at the exact same time, is this feud done better happening right now?
Right.
So
I don't... Yeah. And, like, the thing for me is, maybe in a vacuum, like, the 2020 stuff is so great as far as a story, but, like, if you are a person that remembers stuff, and you compare it, and you also have the knowledge of what they tried, what they did, and ultimately didn't pull the trigger on 2018, it's like, nah, man, it's a bunch of rambling nonsense.
Yeah.
Like, maybe it's not fair to even add that because, like, you know, we got quote-unquote different bookers in the way, but Vince was still there. We still had to watch that shit. And it's like, y'all teased and fought each other tooth and nail, and beat each other up backstage and ultimately, like, became the tag champions, the women's tag champions. Y'all lose the belt. Sasha goes away for months. Sasha turns heel. Bayley then turns heel. They're on separate brands, I believe, by that point in time. They ended up on the same brand. They're passive aggressive. Actually, no, they're buddy, except for Bayley is like being a shitty friend and fucking up stuff for Sasha, and Sasha doesn't like. She acts like she doesn't watch the show or review anything she does, which is like the thing we talk about Inner Circle is like, you can't pull that on us. We watch the show. And, like, so Bayley keeps doing all this stuff, and then the second, like, they lose those tag titles, and that, you know, and then you throw in, like, the stupid finish with the Asuka and Kyrie thing where the right Kyrie off TV, and it's like, well, that is attached to this story, and it's like, that shit wasn't good either necessarily, even though I liked it. It was, I liked it for the fact that it made the babyface make a choice that was, like, sacrificing, her belt for her friend. Like, I like that idea in a vacuum. I don't like it in the actual execution fully realized, but whatever. So, like, all that's attached to this stuff, and there's like, nah, but if you pick off, like, these 5 things, then it is really great. And I'm like, well, I gotta pick off 5 things, the fuck?
Yeah,
you know, and then you look
I can't say I've ever heard a comparison.
Rich, one thing.
You
then you gotta throw in, like, what their match is where, like, you get Pillmanization, they're fighting over this one particular chair, their match, and we talked about this on Twitter, about, like, their match is based around this one particular fucking chair, and then in the middle of the match, they use 5 or 6 other chairs, and then, like, the finish relies on them having to go out the ring to grab the heel turning chair. Like, I'm sorry, I don't remember when, like, Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins fought in all the matches in 2014 and 2015, they kept going back to the chair that, like, Seth Rollins originally put across Ambrose and Reigns' back. I don't recall that.
Yeah. And I've seen, like, instances of this, like, done well. Kenny Omega and Jon Moxley, the first time he DDTs Kenny through the glass, that glass shows back up in the match or whatever, and they pull it out a bag. Like, those feel like there's not enough of a difference between a chair with some spray paint on it and a regular chair. I'm sorry. Like, it ain't, you know.
The first Hell in a Cell match.
Yeah.
With the chairs. Like, you crap me with a chair, screw me out of the title. The babyface eventually comes back and cracks him over the head and makes him blade with a gigantic chair shot, and then Kane comes out. Like, we've seen all this stuff tied together. How many matches have we seen with Triple H and a fucking sledgehammer?
I'm trying to think of some more stuff that. I mean,
let's talk about you talk about Roman. Let's talk about McIntyre.
Yeah, McIntyre. Yeah, I think McIntyre is the classic world champion title reign that Vince likes to do. This is Shawn Michaels in '96. This is a Hogan title reign. This is John Cena in 2005. This is your big Jack babyface muscle champion, and remove Shawn from the Jack big part, but it's the same style thing. Like, there's a heel factory for you to run through. There's a big heel at the end, and then you may lose it to him, but ultimately you get it back. I thought it was booked incredibly well. McIntyre got accepted in a way Roman Reigns never has. I have some ideas as to why on that, but but he, I think, you know, for what he was asked to do, I don't think you can find someone that they had available for Raw to do it better than what he did. Do I have like reservations on like where he's going? I'm very interested to see where he's going, but I think he knocked it out of the park.
Oh yeah, totally. He's absolutely slaying it. I would say the matches themselves, when they get to pay-per-view, they're very sports entertainment. They're very, very WWE. McIntyre's matches are not Rich Latta Pro Wrestling. It's just
and I like him. And like the thing about the match he had with Lashley, like I thought that was awesome until the finish. Like the Ziggler one, like the Styles match. Like I think
the Seth Rollins match.
Yeah.
Like even Roman Reigns, like his match at Survivor Series. That is, like, at the end of it, I was thoroughly sports entertained. That was WWE, like, beat after beat. And not as bad as the greatest match of the year, Edge and Orton. But it was still like sports entertainment stuff. It was the WWE things that you come to expect. And it works, does it really well. Randy Orton, as his adversary, yes, they wrestled a little too much from, like, July to November, end of November. Just straight, no other opponent. Like, Jesus Christ. But, well, the matches themselves I enjoyed most of the part. It's the WWE style, like, done really well, and McIntyre's really risen up. And, like, I think they might be heading to running Lashley versus McIntyre again for the Rumble. And I'm generally looking forward to it. Like, I would generally be up for that.
Well, they protected the match.
Yeah, unless it's a Raw special. I've not kept up with that, actually. I've not watched Raw in 2 weeks. It's been a nice time. And, yeah, I feel like he's been an amazing champion. Obviously, him being Scottish is a little bit different, because when he won the Rumble, to have a Scottish winner of the Rumble, like in the pubs and bars in the UK, back when you can go to pubs and bars, there were people just crammed inside. And it's in some of those bars and pubs, people were going crazy in Scotland seeing Drew McIntyre win, which it was a massive moment. And of course, there's a joke over here that whenever a Scottish person achieves something, they're British. Yes. Well done for Britain.
Oh my God.
And like Andy Murray, whenever Andy Murray loses in the tennis, oh, he's Scottish. He's not English. He's Scottish. It's fine. He's Scottish. But he wins. Oh, he done it for Great Britain. Well done. So it's great to see a British champion in Drew McIntyre. He's been fantastic. Keep it on him till Mania. I mean, I don't know who we feud with. I'm just expecting the worst, but yeah, been really solid all the way to Mania. Whatever the date is now. Yeah.
Yeah. Trying to think who else we can. I mean, I feel like, you know, at this point we can talk about like Randy Orton, Edge, and like Asuka, and then we can be out of here. Or we can get to our matches, top 10 matches, or whatever else. I think this is what I'll say about Asuka. Beginning of the year with Raw and McIntyre, her and McIntyre carried the day, and like especially after like Becky left, like it was like I don't know what are we doing, but like they one of the things for all you want to say about Heyman, he did a great job for about a year of protecting Asuka, to get her to Royal Rumble, and they had a great match at Royal Rumble. Like from there, Asuka just stuck around in a way that like you never thought they would ever do with her. Like she wasn't like they kept her busy doing other stuff, and like especially she came in really handy when the pandemic officially hit, and they would like use her for like guest commentary, just because she has the charisma of like 10 wrestlers. Like she just goes out there and dances and yells and screams and cuts people out in Japanese, and it was awesome. And then she would come out here and have good matches with like the other good wrestlers in that division, and like she kept Raw for when Becky and Charlotte were gone. And like her run from that time, from the pandemic dropping until SummerSlam, was like, you look back and you're just like, she was a legitimate wrestler of the year contender for WWE up until that moment, with all the matches she had with her tagging with Kyrie, her matches with Bayley, her matches with Sasha. She did a really good job. So shouts out to her. I guess we can get to, unless y'all have points, we can get to Randy Orton and /Edge.
Asuka, like, tons of charisma. Glad she kind of got something like I think she's still in search of like a signature win myself.
I agree.
And hopefully they won't keep treating her like the interloper among the Four Horsemen or Four Horsewomen eventually.
Yeah. So, Imp, you have anything or?
I would say on Asuka, she absolutely kicked ass throughout the course of the year.
Yeah.
And it's one of those wrestlers where I really should have been really excited for Sasha versus Asuka at Survivor Series, but we'd already seen it 27 times over the course of the summer.
Yeah.
So yeah. It's because Skip's a writer, former main page writer for I can't say lots of page for Wrestling Headlines. I'm wearing the fecking t-shirt. So he hit me up for the wish list, and like my number one thing was stop running the same match every single week to build the feud. Universe AI, as we called it earlier. Like you don't have to do it. It's fine. I will remember. You don't have to give me Street Profits versus Andrade and Garza again.
Yeah.
Right? Well, right now, Street Profits versus Rude and Ziggler. So I don't watch SmackDown, but
oh god,
yeah, it's running that every time I go to the photos, because of course I need them to make the Photoshop stuff. I see that they're feuding still. Every week's been another interaction. It's like same mistake. You have no tag division. You have to run the same match. Even JV was just shouting it, and I was like, "Where are the other teams?" I was like, just business interrupt stuff. So yeah,
okay,
that's my parting words.
Okay, yeah, so I guess we have to talk about Randy Orton, we're talking about Randy Orton, we have to. His stuff with Edge beginning of the year, promo stuff was like some of the best promo work for virtually anything that we've seen over the last, or decade in WWE. Just incredible stuff, incredible, it can only be done if you have these people that are stars that you have lived with or watched over, a period of time. And, obviously it helps a lot that, they've done the stuff where, I don't want to say he's a part of media, but he's a part of the podcast community stuff with Edge and Christian, and they've had Orton, and they talked about some of the good old times, and that's a lot of people have listened to that stuff. So, if a lot of that stuff felt so earned that, that you can actually, hear Randy Orton say something as much as, I love Edge because he saved my life more than you, Beth Phoenix, and he's a heel after he just laid out Edge, and he's talking in front of his wife, and then it's so incredible that the crowd cheers this fucking evil guy that just hurt a dude with a bad neck. It's one of the most fantastic magic tricks I've ever seen in my life, and I was with that crowd. I was like, yeah, he does love him more than you, Beth. This is incredible. So I just the WrestleMania match, it did not work. It was way too long.
Light it on fire.
Yeah. But, the joke about the greatest wrestling match ever, if they had just pre-taped it and didn't give it that tag, we'll all just say, yep, great match, 4 1/4, and then call it a day or whatever else to go on from there. But there was so much attached to it and whatever else. But I really enjoyed that. And I think that, Randy Orton, the fact that, he became this promo seemingly out of nowhere is we've all talked about Randy Orton for years, being a up and down promo guy or just a boring promo guy. And for him to do this year was just how did you pick? What made you decide? Where did this come from? Yeah. So I don't know what y'all have to say about Orton, but go ahead.
Yeah, he's had a knockout year from the Edge stuff to the McIntyre stuff. I'd say even the Fiend, but that's not. I'd say what's happened so far isn't his fault. He's the actor. I won't blame the actor for what's happened so far. I will say the memes from this week's Raw have been amazing. Again, didn't watch it, so I've only seen the memes, but it's an interesting one.
I don't know what caused Randy Orton to get motivated. Maybe it was he looked around. After his WrestleMania program was essentially set in stone and he got there, but then he looked around there's all these people that Vince don't trust. Who's he going to trust? I guess I better make sure I'm in shape. I guess I better bring my A game and remember all my promos and just kind of. He seemed like he they looked around and it was just reliable old Randy Orton, and then he just did a good job with a lot of the stuff he was given, and then he got built up as a big heel over the summer. I thought him and Drew is a very underrated feud. And I'm not Randy Orton's biggest fan. I can talk about, if you want, we can go all day, but we don't have that kind of time today. But I think you've got to add this year, start talking about his Hall of Fame resume. This year helps it a lot.
You talking for Reserve Hall of Fame?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm with you, but only because he brought stuff to the table that he had never displayed before. If you want to talk about this is a dude that was born, that showed up 20 years too late to the party for the way he wrestles, I'm with you on that. But the fact that he came out and became a top promo this year was yo, what? This is one of the biggest knocks against him was the fact that he can be a very pedestrian, a lot of times boring promo that occasionally will come out the woodwork and cut a fiery promo that catches you off guard. And then this year he was I got something for you. And I don't know if that's because of motivation, because of Edge. I don't know if that's because he's in a different part of his career where he's if I don't cut promos and I have the same matches I've been having for majority of my career, maybe it's over for me. Another part is a big motivating factor. All them damn kids. Right?
Yeah.
He has 2 or 3 step kids now. So it's the motivation a little different, when you got that college fund has been, quadrupled. So, or tripled. So I'm happy for it that it turned out this way. I think that a lot of, for one of the people that we talked about, WWE adjusting to the pandemic, he's one of the people that adjusted the best because his promo style, while was great when we still had a crowd, got better once the crowd wasn't there, because it was he was staring directly into the camera and a low tone of voice lets you know that I will fucking kill one of y'all. I'm not playing with y'all. So, I am the best, and if it takes me having to murder Ric Flair's old ass, I will do so. He definitely was one of the few people that adapted best in the E, and I don't know if he could have done that if it wasn't him being that level of star and that level of trust with Vince, because if it was, I don't know, Big E, I don't think he gets that kind of rope, even though Big E should have all the rope in the world, given that him and Xavier and Kofi have been merch machines forever, but you get my point.
Right.
Yeah. So, I guess we move on to our top 10 matches. Imp, will you start us off?
Right, just getting them up. Right, so, again, there's a severe lack of a certain brand on this one, really, especially the final 5. But number 10 was one a lot of people liked. Finn Balor versus Kyle O'Reilly from NXT. Was it just called TakeOver, that one? I think that one.
No, that was TakeOver 31.
That was it, yeah. I can say it was a very good match in that style, but it's not a style I love. A lot of people do. It's one of those kind of main events that I would class as, hardcore wrestling fan might enjoy it, but I call it extremely niche. There's not much sports entertainment in there, for example. And I would say there is some in like the Okada Omega matches. There is some kind of sprinkled in, and I need a bit of that. And Balor O'Reilly didn't have any of that for me, but it was a solid match of that type, so it makes my top 10. And you'll see by the next match, I'm immediately struggling. Daniel Bryan versus AJ Styles from SmackDown for the Intercontinental Championship. I had a blank spot for ages. I was like, well, that was a fine match. That'll make it. So that's in at number 9. There were quite a few matches where it's like, one of the matches was good in this really long feud, like New Day Hurt Business. But they did so many, they just gelled together, and I don't remember what match was good. Mm-hmm. So, Sasha Banks Asuka as well is the same issue. Number 8, War Games between Undisputed Era and Pat McAfee and his Merry Men. That was just a decent War Games match. Again, it's my top 10, and I'm calling them decent, which is, I think, it's a bit of the match quality wasn't especially high this year. 7, Drew McIntyre versus Roman Reigns. I was thoroughly sports entertained. That's my best recommendation for it. 6, getting a bit more serious. Keith Lee versus Dominik Dijakovic from TakeOver Portland. Cannot believe that's this year. For me, that is insane. This match was this year in front of a white-hot live crowd. Those two doing their PWG match on a WWE stage. Fantastic to see. Really, really enjoyed that match. And now look at them. Just look at them now. So top 5, Sasha Banks versus Asuka. They had a lot of really good matches over the course of the year, but the ones over the summer just blend together. So I've gone with their final match in Survivor Series. That was at least a bit more separate, and I've really enjoyed those two wrestling together. I feel like my top 10 here, they're very personable. They're my top 10. They're not the top 10.
Right.
So I really enjoy Banks and Asuka's chemistry, and this is the most recent that I can remember. Number 4, Becky Lynch versus Asuka from the Royal Rumble. Again, can't believe that was this year, but the rematch between those two was fantastic. I feel like that'll be forgotten, a lot of top 10 lists, just because it felt like it was so long ago. But it was a really, really good match, a fantastic follow-up. Number 3, Sasha Banks versus Bayley from Hell in a Cell. I really like the innovation that Sasha Banks brings similarly to all of her Hell in a Cell matches. Becky Lynch from a couple of years ago, that's another standout. And for me, those two killed it. I'm not a massive fan of when the creative stuff kind of kicks in towards the end of the matches, but for the most part, really enjoyed what they brought to the table for Hell in a Cell. Number 2, Kevin Owens versus Roman Reigns at TLC. That was a fantastic table, ladders and chairs match. One of the best that incorporated a story and wasn't just stunt stuff. I feel like TLC matches often are doing things rather than me caring about what's happening. And this match actually made me care for like the first time since, I don't know, Undertaker Edge? I'm trying to think, it's been a long time since I cared. But yeah, it's a really solid one. And my match of the year is the men's Royal Rumble match from the Royal Rumble. It's just a solidly booked Rumble. And for some reason, when you book your Rumble well, for me that, and it has so many positives spinning off of it, creates so many names, especially with Drew McIntyre. There's no complaint for me. Like, yeah, you nailed it. Well done. You've built a star. You nailed your Rumble match. And the women's Rumble match is a great example of that not working. I did not enjoy the women's at all. The men's flipping nailed it. Well done. This is how good it can be.
So are you saying fire the women, Imp?
Women's I think we're calling it here women's wrestling's dead, right? It's dead. Yeah.
Rich?
Yeah, so I'll just run through my 10. My number 10, I got Drew McIntyre versus Roman Reigns at Survivor Series. I thought it was a great presentation of two champions at their peaks, I would say, right in the middle of their careers, same age, same look, same everything. Number 9, I'm going to go with Dominik Dijakovic and Keith Lee at TakeOver Portland.
Yep.
This is where they let it out the bag. Lots of crazy shit and all the stuff they don't let Keith Lee do anymore. What they've done with Keith Lee is an abomination that we did not get a chance to cover. Just wanted to mention that. Number 8, Finn Balor versus Damian Priest at NXT TakeOver. I think I'm the high man on this match. Like
that was in your house. That was TakeOver in your house.
My fault. Gotcha. Damian Priest and Finn Balor. I thought this was Finn Balor's best match in ages. Like as far as like top end work, and Damian Priest showed that he's if they let him, he's somewhat a force to be reckoned with. Number 7, I've got Finn Balor versus Kyle O'Reilly for the NXT title. They beat the holy hell out of each other, and did it in. They almost like, they say, just keep it simple, and that, whatever. It was simple, but people still got hurt. So, like, even that, like, that's why I'm like, I don't care what you do in your match. Fall on your neck. I don't care. Like, it ain't me. Like, so, Finn Balor had a broken jaw in the fallout, but, this is a good example of them actually trying a new person with Kyle O'Reilly. But, he's part of that Undisputed Era. It's a little long in the tooth. Up next, Matt Riddle and Timothy Thatcher in the fight pit. Very unique presentation. Made Thatcher look like a killer. Sent Matt Riddle out of the territory. Fortunately, I ain't really got much for you else on Thatcher after that because they beat him like a drum every time after that. Number 5, Roman Reigns versus Kevin Owens from TLC. Super match. The big dogs finally realized I always thought Kevin Owens was Roman Reigns with the alignments with Owens as a face and Reigns as a heel would go off swell, and it did because Kevin Owens is just someone the audience has always loved, even when he's a piece of shit. And Roman Reigns was someone they didn't like, even when he was a good stand-up guy. So they've always had great chemistry. Number 4, the NXT Men's War Games. I thought this was like incredible. I thought they put a lot of thought into this. They stuck to the tradition of War Games. They weren't trying to have the baby faces not have the advantage, or they weren't trying to give the baby faces the advantage. This was, just solid work. Even McAfee and his introduction, NXT went far better than anybody could have predicted. Number 3, Roman Reigns versus Jey Uso, Clash of Champions. The first time they ran it, I thought this was such a gripping story in the match. It was the first time they did the heavy dialogue stuff, so I hadn't grown tired of it or hand waved it. I thought it worked extremely well. You talk about presentation, bringing Alpha and Sika and everybody else out to essentially like, they know where they bread is butter with the tribal chief. And, Jey Uso's it wasn't a special like wrestling match or anything, but this was like presentation at its finest. On to some special wrestling. Jordan Devlin versus Tyler Bate coming in at number 2 for me. NXT UK TakeOver in the beginning of the year, the days we had crowds, as Imp said. I thought that these two wrestled the fuck out of each other. This was like, it would have fit right at Wrestle Kingdom. It was, I gave this one 5 stars at the time. I thought, people like to pass that gif around of them, doing the punches and rank on the match. But I'm like, that match was fucking incredible. I don't know what the fuck y'all talking about. So, number 1, though, Walter versus Ilya Dragunov, NXT UK. So, NXT UK with the top 2 on your boys' list. Just an absolute gripping encounter that I was watching with people who were actively trying to distract me from the match, and I was able to ignore them. Because what I was watching, I felt was just so gripping. I knew the result. I knew everything. And it's Walter. Of course he's going to fucking win. But, however, this was like, this is the king of the empty arena era. Like, as far as like, what you're looking for, like, as far as like, there's no fans, it doesn't matter. Like, the empty building style match, like, this is it right here. I'm sure there was some stuff in like, Noah that was great, or All Japan, but like, Just like Ilya Dragunov, no matter what he did, he didn't have enough. Sorry, it's Walter.
Okay, so number 10 for me, NXT. I think it was either night 1 or 2 of Great American Bash, the Tough White Man match. Oni Lorcan versus Timothy Thatcher in a 7-minute old grizzled bastard match. Oh my God, he put him in a sugar hole. That's the best way to explain it. I haven't seen someone actually get put in a sugar hole in I don't know how long, but Thatcher put this man in a sugar hole. He out grappled him. Oni came back with strikes and chops and face chops and neck chops. It was just an awesome match of brutality. Number 9. Rhea Ripley versus Raquel Gonzalez, NXT. I want to say that was like October or November. Can't remember. Don't care. It was the same exact night that had Wardlow versus Adam Cole. And when we go to the AEW version, that match will also be making it too. That was a fantastic week of Wednesday Rest for James Boyd. Hosses being physical, throwing each other around, sneering, snorting, and growling at each other. Raquel is more powerful than Rhea. Rhea has been overpowering everyone everywhere she's been in NXT until she runs into someone that has that ability that she just cannot top. And ultimately it's up to her to try to figure out how to get around someone and deal with someone being stronger and more powerful than her. And she uses her dexterity as a wrestler and more skill to eventually overcome her. Loved it. Great storytelling. Number 8. Daniel Bryan versus AJ Styles on SmackDown early beginning of the year. It was the Intercontinental title tournament final. This is the only main roster match that's going to be on my card. They were one of the first people to figure out how to conquer the empty arena setting. They just great wrestling. It's very similar to the previous matches from 2018 to 19 where one person works a body part, the other one has to figure out how to survive, and ultimately how to survive normally is working them getting a body part of their own to single line isolate, and then it comes to a battle of wills. AJ Styles just happened to win at the end. So number 7 for me, Kyle O'Reilly and Pete Dunne ladder match for War Games Advantage in November of November. Incredible match. Kyle O'Reilly and Pete Dunne, if you want to look at it, have pieced together through sheer accident mostly an incredible resume and match in 2020 against each other, whether it was Broserweights versus Undisputed Era at Portland, whether it was this ladder match, whether it was not in your house, but whether it was the War Games match, whether it was their match for number 1 contendership for the NXT title a couple weeks ago. They're just a match made in heaven. It goes together. They're grapplers. They're submission people. You throw in the striking that O'Reilly does, and it's best of the Super Juniors level wrestling. It just is. Number 6 for me would be Io Shirai versus Rhea Ripley. They finally had the match. They had been teasing it all throughout the year. They finally got to it, and when they had it, it was great. Io just outclassed her for the beginning of the match. Rhea mounts a run for herself. Ultimately, it looks like the tide is turning until Io takes her outside, out to the apron, hits a flip over sunset bomb onto the table from inside the ring over the top rope, grabs her, throws her onto the table. Rhea beats the 10 count. She makes the 10 count. Io immediately jumps to the turnbuckle and drops her with the moonsault for the win. Great match. Number 5. Number 5 for me, Broserweights versus Mandrews and Morgan Webster from the Dusty Cup tournament. Just PWG indie wrestling extravaganza, just incredible spots, incredible timing, incredible kickouts. This is the one match I would say, like, I would put up against some of the some of the Young Bucks stuff from AEW this year, and from out of AEW that I pick. I wouldn't dare pick anything else really. Well, maybe I picked the Portland match for the title change with Broserweights and Undisputed, but this is it for tag wrestling for something going against the Young Bucks catalog this year in 2020. Number 4 for me, Tyler Bate versus Jordan Devlin from Blackpool 2. An incredible match. This is the epitome of a takeover match. Great crowd, of course, with the UK and Blackpool. Bate had never won on a UK takeover. Changed that one. He thought he had him with the Tyler driver. Devlin kicks out. Bate just runs and sprints to the top turnbuckle. Hits his corkscrew, gets the win. Crowd goes wild. Eventually, we're going to have another Walter match. It's going to be great. I can't wait. Number 3 for me, Keith Lee versus Dijak, the blow-off match in Portland. Everything they've displayed for us on NXT in 2019 came to the forefront, and they decided to take it up a notch. Dijak dedicated the match to Kobe. He comes off the top off the top rope onto Keith Lee, who's sitting in a chair between the announce tables, and front flips onto him. Keith Lee catches this fucking guy. Unbelievable match. Just an incredible match. That might be my most my rating is overrated compared to the general consensus. I give that match 5 stars. This is like a 4.25 star compared to the match. I don't care. Y'all are all wrong. Kiss my ass. Then, number 2, Balor versus O'Reilly, NXT title match, TakeOver 31. Love the match. It's the best of Super Juniors final, except it's in NXT. Just grit, determination. One of the best sell jobs, in the world this year. Kyle O'Reilly selling, his basically a liver shot. Just doubled over in pain like he's finna die. Just incredible wrestling. Number 1 for me, Walter versus Dragunov NXT UK title match. Just a masterpiece of brutality and violence. Guys beat the piss out of each other. Dragunov just worked from underneath. Just fighting, just desperate to try to overcome this dude. And much like these Walter matches and NXT takeovers, nothing doing. I'm gonna beat the piss out of you. I'm gonna make you look like your best baby face you could possibly be, and I'm going to finish you. Incredible match. Yeah. So, thank you for coming on with us. Can you get your plugs in, please?
No problem. And thank you for having me on again. It's been a year. I think it's off air. How's it? Only a year? I generally was like, wait, am I getting mixed up? Was this 2 years ago that I was on? I'm just getting confused. No, it's only been a year. Wow. That's insane. But yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at the Damn Implicat. That's damn as in damn. Still not thought of a new way to say that. I didn't get any kind of girth behind that. I felt so white going, damn. That's not right. No, there's some girth behind it. Some Vince McMahon. Ugh, damn. There we go. Anyway, you can also watch me on my YouTube channel my YouTube channel. I do reviews every single week for Raw and NXT on the Wrestling Headlines YouTube channel. I'll be covering both nights of Wrestle Kingdom as well. So I'll be live as soon as the shows are finished. And I'll be joined by an American guy because he's mental. But yes, I'll be live as soon as the shows are finished for Wrestle Kingdom. I'll also be... I also write a columnist for Wrestling Headlines as well, so they're popping up. As well, end of year awards, they're not, I don't think they're closed yet. I'm not sure. I'm recording the show next week, so they must close soon. I'm not sure whether. So you can go to Wrestling Headlines to do your end of year awards thing. I'm assuming your awards, are your awards closed or open?
They're still open.
Still open.
Yeah, they'll be open probably until we do the award show, probably like the middle or late January, maybe early February.
Yeah. I voted. Go vote. Go vote the One Nation Radio Awards. But yeah, so have I forgot any? I've probably forgotten something. Yeah, I've not plugged in ages. It's been 2 weeks. I've forgotten how to do it. Yes, that's everything. Yeah, follow me. Oh, Twitch. There we go. I knew it was bloody something. Yes, I've been streaming on Twitch at the Implications with a second S, along with the guy from the Wrestling Shorts YouTube channel. I've been streaming with him, so I'm often on his channel or my channel that do stuff as well. My plan is when I come back to be streaming some Yakuza Like a Dragon, because I flipping love that series, and I got the new game for Christmas, so I'll be playing that when I come back. Yeah, and suck it. I like to play it in Japanese. Get used to it. It's like, I asked
when you got to read a road sign or something.
Well, I asked someone on to because we were talking about how different places have adapted to the pandemic, and I asked one of the normal American guys that I have on to help me review New Japan if he wants to join me for one of the post shows. I think it might have been Jingu. And it was just like, oh, I don't like watching New Japan where it's not with the English commentary. I'm just like, that's so weird to me. To like, yeah, that is how that be how you watch it? That's really strange. Anyway, before I lead us down a tangent hole, I'll stop. That's all my shit plugged.
All right. Yeah, so thank you again, Imp, and we will be moving on to AEW. And we're back, and we have brought in the big guns for AEW. With us, we have the Doc, Chad Matthews. What's going on, Chad?
Not much, gentlemen. I was excited to get the last minute tip about this. I'm ready to go. Let's do it.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I had mentioned to Rich that we should get you on for this occasion, and then I guess like I just forgot to ask you, and then it's like, well, either we're going to do this or we're not. And it's like, well, shit, Chad's probably way too busy to be doing this. He's busier than the president. Then luckily, we found an opening, so we're making it work. So,
no, I appreciate it. I'm excited.
Yeah. So, I guess we have to start pretty much anywhere with any discussion. We have to talk about this. How bad do you think AEW adapted to the conditions given to us from the pandemic?
I think they adapted as well as anybody in the business. I thought that their use of the plants around the ring was just perfect. The way basically, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like you basically showed everybody the template for how to do it. You know, aiming the hard camera at the stage instead of the crowd, having plants around the ring to give sphere. They've got the cool open air stadium. Well, I guess it's not completely open air, but they've got the amphitheater for them to use that just looks great. Think that from the standpoint of an aesthetic dynamic, they did a wonderful job, showed everybody else how to do it, and then the booking just continued to be this part. I mean, it had its hits or misses like anybody would, but I think by and large they maintained interest and enthusiasm throughout the pandemic era to date, and really think about crowds anymore, and that's in large part because of what AEW did.
Rich?
Yeah, AEW lost a lot this year, and while it was still great, I think, just incredibly booked. Like, I'm trying not to think about all the things we lost, like Blood and Guts, like them going over to London to start like expanding internationally, which was on deck. That was going to be Fyter Fest, and you see someone like Hangman Page kind of get his legs cut off as the crowd was, really with him at a certain point. Mox's entire title reign, doomed to no fans. However, I feel like if we're talking about adjusting on the fly, this is what they do. Like the first show of the promotion's history, they had to adjust on the fly when Pac wasn't able to make it in. The second pay-per-view they ever had, they had to be adjusted on the fly when Jon Moxley couldn't wrestle Kenny Omega. And all they've done is Chris Jericho lose the title, and they turn that into like a bunch of social media traffic for themselves. All these people do is adapt. So while the pandemic weakened and made me, think about all the things they lost, the stuff that we got in this place was still pretty fucking awesome. Like, just from top to bottom.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think you guys are underselling this. I I watched a shit ton of Stardom this year. I watched a shit ton of New Japan this year. I watched a shit ton of NXT, and I watched a good amount or a decent amount of main roster television. This promotion handled and adjusted to COVID better than any of them. Everybody I just mentioned, they did better than all of them. With the heel and babyface size for the crowd, miking or whatever else. The idea to put the camera facing the ramp to forget those empty seats. You don't even see those empty seats. Almost 90% of the show or 95% of the show. That in itself worked out so much better than coming into a cold, for the Project Together thing when they came back for the restart for New Japan Pro Wrestling, coming to just a cold, empty, small building. It did better than Stardom restarting, for Stardom is again with, them in front of, a few people here and there, and it's a clap crowd, and, they're killing each other, but it's still a clap crowd. It's better than, WWE for months just going out there, having seats in the ramp and a barricade around and everything, and just doing that. It's just so much better. I feel like they were the best booked coming out of the pandemic, which is saying something considering, how highly I think of Stardom. I feel like they got into a groove, and they had to make adjustments, whether it was going to, Georgia, whether it was moving finally to Jacksonville, and it's become the permanent spot ever since then. But I felt like, the changes they made over time, like I didn't feel like their matches suffered from the stuff that we talk about when we talk about Stardom or New Japan or WWE. Overwhelmingly, or not overwhelmingly, but overall, I feel like their matches mostly felt like their matches for the most part, especially compared to everybody else.
I think it's pretty telling that you take away the hottest crowd in the business, and there's almost negligible drop off.
Yeah, and they also did it without trying to murder each other by killing each other with physical matches, super physical matches. Granted, Kenny Omega is going to try to kill himself every other match, but we still relatively, the Young Bucks wrestle pretty damn safe.
Yeah, really speaks to how long it's been since the pandemic started now. 10 months almost since crowds, and it almost just feels normal. AEW helped normalize not having crowds for wrestling shows, and to the point where, obviously there's a contrast when you go back and rewatch something from February versus rewatching something from just a few months later. Yeah. But the fact that we're actually able to have engaging conversation about wrestling and not be talking about that which it has lacked, I think is in large part due to AEW setting the tone. So you're right. They knocked it out of the park. They had a great year against all odds.
Okay, so now that we've gotten the big gigantic elephant out in Front Street and have to handle that, because that's the most important thing. From a creative standpoint, obviously we're all in agreement that this year was a great year for AEW creatively. Compared to its initial run out the box, let's say, from, October to, the end of 2019, do you feel like it's on par, better, or slightly worse? How would you feel about it?
I think it's slightly worse. I think concentrating on the positives like we just did, there are some negatives that come with it, which is if you don't have that all, engage it. We had a sample size during the first few months of the year leading up to Revolution. Mm-hmm. And that was about as good an 8-week run of television as you see in this era. And to not have to not give them the opportunity because of the pandemic to build on that, to see if they can take it to the next level or at the sustain it, it's too bad. I mean that part is just kind of inextricably linked with the nature of the pandemic era in wrestling, is that right before it, we had unbelievable run up to a really tremendous pay-per-view. So booking wise, overall, I think they've done quite well, but the standard that was particularly not so much 2019, but 2019 leading into the pre-pandemic part of 2020. It's tough to compare them because that era was just so good, and the crowd dynamic feeding that energy every week it's just tough to replicate that without audience.
Yeah, January through Kansas City, so that would be the night they did the Elite versus Pac and the Lucha Brothers, and then they got that television contract, which extension after that show essentially saved the company. I don't know if we're sitting here talking about an AEW if that they don't do that great number that day and get everything renewed, and extended. Kevin Durant money, as we said, and I don't think we have an AEW. And then those 8 weeks following that, I felt like I was watching all time wrestling television. Individual episodes that stand out for me: the Atlanta episode, Kansas City. Those two, you don't see many promotions reach that with their pay-per-views. So. Slightly, there's been an adjustment, and I felt like since the pandemic, they're still the leader, as far as laying stuff out, booking and execution and everything like that. But it's hard to compare that to that 8-week, 10-week period, because that's the peak of pro wrestling for me.
I quite frankly don't think that anything they did this year, unless I'm forgetting something, made me as and felt like as much of a gut punch on a weekly or bi-weekly basis as the Nightmare Collective stuff. So, we talk about the Cody and Jericho feud, but I like the Jericho and Cody feud. I like the Inner Circles versus Moxley feud as much as that, maybe more. The beginning of the first 2 months of the year do count as being in 2024 AEW. So for me, with the whooping the MJF stuff, the bubbling and passive aggressiveness of Hangman and Omega versus the Young Bucks, all that stuff still counts for I know it feels like it was many years ago, but that actually was this year. So for me, I think the very best of it matches what we got in those first 3 months of Dynamite for me. But I was just wondering where y'all all stood on it. So I guess from there we can talk about some of our top moments from this particular year. I'm sorry, I'm steering the car. We're gonna have to talk about Inner Circle versus Moxley, because I just adore that whole run of television. I just did. Chad, what are your takeaways looking back on it now?
Inner Circle versus Moxley was probably most kind of building on Rich's point about all-time great television. I mean, I felt like that was the best championship feud that we'd seen in North America in a really long time. And I'm going to say even beyond North America, because the reality is that I don't watch any of the promo stuff or any of the story stuff from New Japan. So when I go into it, it's watching a football game on a Saturday without having listened to anybody talk about it ahead of time. It's just naturally taking these two guys oh, that's really interesting. I'm going to watch that like sport. But when you add back in the entertainment dynamic, the way they weaved that story across those 8-9 weeks leading up to Revolution, I mean, the Inner Circle versus feud was just about picture perfect. And I think the funny thing is that I could say the exact same thing about MJF versus Cody. And those two things running concurrently was pretty magnificent.
Yeah, man. Those two feuds, like the MJF and Cody with the whipping segment, was one of the most gripping segments I've ever watched. I showed that to Catherine, and it was just like, rewatching it, it's just like I knew everything that was happening and coming, and it was just like, what the hell? Why is this man putting himself through this? Like, and it was just like, I felt like a real moment where, you know, AEW had the honeymoon period that was going on, you know, in 2019 and even in the parts of 2020. It was like a departure from that. It was like, oh, we're doing like real deal heavy angles now that have like weight underneath of it. So, and also with the Mox and Inner Circle thing, that was like every great kung fu movie we've ever seen. Like fighting through the minions to get to the master. Like, and you throw in the stealing the car stuff. You throw in Santana doing the interview with Jim Ross, like showing that he has something to offer. And at the end, like, it's probably I don't want to say the end, but it's like Jericho's final, like I would say, like, big run as like a top star, like top guy, is this great programming authored.
Yeah, I think the thing for me was just how well it all tied together, and also just like Moxley, his whole run of television all year in 2020 was fantastic. But this was the starting point. You know, they teased. I think before they got out of 2019, they teased that, like, you know, they're gonna have some type of, you know, conversation where Jericho wants him to join in, or wants his answer for whether or not he wants to join Inner Circle. And then they tease it from beginning of the year. They meet up together. They shoot the shit thing about how much, you know, mentor and, you know, mentoring Jericho did for his career to get him to AEW. And then he says, you know, I'll hear him out. And then they do, you know, in almost like it was reminiscent of the thumbs up, thumbs down Batista Triple H thing, which is funny because we're probably going to bring that up again later in the show. But like, he's like, yeah, I'll join Inner Circle, absolutely. And then like Guevara and all the other idiots, like, they run out the ring to celebrate, and then he's like, yeah, I was just joking. I don't want anything you have to give me, even your money. Like, except for that, he points at the belt on his shoulder, and then he bashes that bottle of champagne over this man's head. And they were on from there. Like, you know, you stole my car, I got something for you. I will blind you. You do not get to steal a $250,000 car from me and just get to, you know, drive off with it. We will hurt you. Look, his nickname is Goon, and the other one's Ruffian and Thug is their nicknames. You don't get to steal from Ruffian and Thug. You will feel this. They blind him in one eye. You know, then you end up getting, Moxie gets his comeuppance against Santana because of the incredible promo about his stepfather and blindness, and how that tied into where they are, the eye for an eye match, official or unofficial, whatever it was called. That was great television. The Santana match, great television. He even gave Guevara some, and then ultimately we get to Revolution, and like all of those storyline beats tie into place where he has to patch over his eye rust that whole entire time. And then at the end, it's like, his eye's been healed. He's been like playing possum with y'all the whole time. He ends up hitting him with, you know, once you think I got no eyes, I actually have one. Gotcha. I almost called it Dirty Deeds, but, the Paradigm Shift, new champion. Yeah. Just, it was so good. Just so good. And it was like, it felt so rewarding and satisfying to watch it come out of Moxley, because we talked about this on the preview show for our awards. Like, we all knew what was within him since 2014, 15, 16 at the latest. Like, we weren't crazy, we were gaslit. And to see that unfold is just like, thank you. We're not crazy.
Yeah.
And we talk about Cody and MJF. Just, I'm not as crazy about the whooping as y'all are, but what I will give props to is the level of commitment to the story in the cage match. The cage match is what I will praise.
Yes.
Like at the highest. Cody in there with this green dude, and they just make it work out. It was just great television and great, I believe that we talked about this. If Cody's beginning of 2020 is towards the end, I think we look back on it in a higher regard. It's just, the beginning of this year was 5 years ago.
Yeah. And then, and in that same time frame, you get the AEW tag team titles changed. They go from SCU to Hangman and Kenny from, the start of the year. They're just on a streak, just great matches every week, running through Private Party, Lucha Bros, PMP, SCU, cleaning out the whole division essentially. And then that leads into, probably my match of the year, the tag match with against the Bucks. And there are special matches, and that's one of them. The other day, I sent the Omega kickout spot with the kicking out of the
golden trigger at 1,
and kicking out at 1, and then thinking about how that made me feel in the moment. I may be jumping ahead here, but the Young Bucks got me to be like, oh, fuck y'all. And that would never happen unless it was some earned shit. I felt like they violated. So, and it was one of the best moments of the year. And then one of the best matches you'll ever see in your life. I might be jumping ahead, but all that is in that same era.
Yeah, I want to go back a bit and talk about the actual build up to that feud. Chad, what were your thoughts on the build up to Hangman and Kenny versus the Young Bucks, as far as their characters, their positions, and the dynamics between the Young Bucks, between Hangman and Kenny?
Oh man, isn't it fascinating to go and think about that 9-10 week stretch at the beginning of the year when AEW was just firing on all cylinders? I mean, you got talking about the classic sports entertainment pro wrestling segments that we're seeing from Moxley and in the Inner Circle, and then MJF versus Cody, and then you have, by contrast, equally as brilliant subtle storytelling going on with Omega and Page and the Young Bucks. Quietly, the whole time, you know where we're going. It's not the same type of dynamic when you've got a title match announced 7-8 weeks in advance to a pay-per-view. But to know, with every little small storytelling detail, that we were inching closer to Bucks challenging Omega and Page for the tag titles on that same night at the Revolution, it was it gave this kind of extraordinary balance to AEW's product, and is partly why that stretch is going to get remembered as the elite all-time caliber of television that Rich was referencing. I thought, going along with that, I thought that the Young Bucks, Omega and Page, came together for that match was perfectly done. I mean, being the elite was an important part of that, I will admit. That was when I was engaged week to week with being the elite for the first time. So to see the things they would do on Being the Elite every week to build up, that was partly what was making me watch it. I wanted to see that extra little storytelling layer that they may add in on BTE. So the whole dynamic with Omega and Page, it hit its peak when it needed to late in the year. But early on, leading up to that match with the Young Bucks, partly what makes that match so special, 6-star, 7-star, call it, all-time great, top 10 all-time caliber match, in my opinion. What made it so great was the subtleties of the storytelling leading up to it. That's what extra dynamic that would make you care so much when you had some of those. To me, the guy who emotionally hooked me in that match was Page. Certainly some of the stuff that the Bucks did, that Omega did, one subtle moment I'll say in that match that Omega did that made me appreciate him that much more was early on. Page is starting to get over aggressive, wanting to take it to a level that Omega is just not comfortable with, and he pulls him back. He's like, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to go down that road. We're not take the anger part of it to that level. We're gonna keep it at a certain level right now. We're not going there yet. Do you guys remember what I'm talking about in that match?
Yeah.
With Omega?
Yeah. Kenny Omega stopped Kenny or Adam Page from kicking too much ass in an ass kicking match.
Yeah. So, I mean, just all the way around, the subtleties in the storytelling were what made that match to me that much better and delivered payoffs emotionally by the time we got to the climax of it, when you just don't know what's going to happen with Adam Page. Is he going to take that next step? Is he going to fall short? Just a brilliant presentation all around that I'd like to talk more about later on as we get into the podcast.
Yeah, man, it was almost like Kenny was on that Bruno Sammartino, like, I'll wrestle you, but I'll only wrestle defensively. Like, where Larry Zbyszko.
Yeah, for me, the dynamic was just, keep in mind, I didn't watch any of the BTE stuff. I was only watching the television. And from watching television, the sense that I got out of Hangman was, I don't want to be here. It's not really quite explained well or understood why. I just don't want to be here, but I have some... But the reason why I have to stay around here is because of Omega. I have a friendship with Omega. I was, down in the dumps, and he stuck a hand out to me, and we made this tag team thing work. And so I'm really appreciative of our friendship. And for some reason, he doesn't want to be with the Elite, and that's mostly because of the Young Bucks breathing air. Whatever, but like he doesn't want to suffer whatever he feels like he's suffering by being around in those two, the Jackson's presence. And he really took it as personal slights when, their friend or, Kenny was still just, put them over the moon as far as like, they're a great team. And he's like, no, we're a great team. Fuck those guys. And that was always bubbling under the surface. And that was always bubbling under the surface until they finally had to sit down where Matt was like, I've had enough of you being this passive aggressive bitch to us. What is wrong with you? Like, we've done all this stuff to help you, and you're like treating us as if we're like torturing you. What the hell's your problem? And, it was, and why this all happening is like, that builds on all this tension we see as potential, as just watchers of wrestling, as like a tag team of two individuals come together. Eventually we figure they're going to split together. So like, with the interaction between Matt and Nick Jackson and, Hangman and Kenny kind of trying to be Switzerland, just trying to like, look, man, I'm friends with all y'all. I ain't got y'all beef is y'all beef. Like my dynamic with each of y'all is like different, is its own, and it's not going to affect any of it. So, like, you see that, that can potentially draw, not potentially, like, at times is drawing Hangman to, like, is he going to turn on Kenny? And, you got the after the match with the tease of the buckshot lariat, was just like, because you don't want to pick a side, like, I don't really want to, I potentially maybe not want to, do anything with you either. Like, I might just want to like lay you out and just move on. And like, I thought that all worked very well. It left me questions of, I understood everybody's direction. I just didn't understand the motivation or the motivation for why he doesn't fuck with the Young Bucks. And that wasn't really explained well on television, but like, I get the dynamic. The dynamic made all the sense in the world, but I just didn't understand that reason for like, why, what did he do? What did they do to them? And I think Sam mentioned it, when he was on the show with us later on. It was like, yeah, like they were doing, like the Young Bucks were like treating him like a young boy. And he's like, I'm not no fucking young boy. And it's like, okay, like if that was just put in place on television, it would have worked. It would have helped me at the time. And like, there's still
also, there's only one wrestler that the Young Bucks second, and it's not Hangman Page.
That's a part of it too.
And what happened?
That's part of it too.
And like they didn't second him against Chris Jericho, and then as long as he was in the Elite, he felt like he would never be able to break out because he'd always be under the Bucks' thumb. So, like, I get it.
Yeah, Yeah, I got it from the part of this, I don't mess with these dudes, and my tag team partner is like still buddy with them. So it's like, are you like, I want you to choose. I'm not going to tell you to choose, but I want you to choose. I want you to choose me. If I think you weren't going to choose me, I probably would have clotheslined your ass, out of your boots by now, but I just haven't. So like for me, like I loved it. And then we got the match. The match was incredible. One of the best matches I've ever seen. And, and this whole thing was about, like, you look at through that whole run, it was about getting Hangman after losing the match to Jericho to, like, he's winning these matches. He's winning the titles. He's putting people away with the buckshot lariat over and over. And then at the end of this match, like, he goes out of his mind and blacks out and just basically goes on a hot tag and wins the damn match by himself. It shows, like, I am better than both of y'all. Kiss my ass, Nick and Matt. And then like he's like, and he got to the point where he's like, he's feeling so much. He's like, maybe I should go out here and take out Kenny. Nah, never mind. Maybe later.
Yeah. I don't know if I want them problems.
Yeah, he'll bring in Callus. So, I guess we go from now that we're caught up the Revolution. That's pretty much takes us to, I guess more or less the introduction of FTR into, or is there something before that you want to mention?
Double or Nothing.
Brody Lee.
And Brody Lee.
Yeah. So then we basically talking about like going to Georgia, going to Jacksonville, the pandemic, and some of the stuff.
TNT tournament.
Yeah. So Rich, you'll overview that one because I'm blanking. Like this is like the time of the year where it's like, I just forgot to rate stuff, and so I don't remember it that well. So you have to jog my memory on some of this stuff.
So we were set for
I can't
Blood
imagine why.
Right? So we were set for Blood and Guts after Revolution. They had started building up Inner Circle and the Elite to go back at it, but World shuts down. So we're in Norcross, Georgia. All of a sudden, there's an introduction of the TNT Championship. And we get like the TNT title tournament, first round matchups, I believe, where, like it basically came down, to Cody and Lance Archer.
Was it 8-person tournament or 4-person tournament?
8-person tournament. It was Dustin and Kip, or 8. Yeah, sorry. Dustin was in it. Sammy and Darby, Cody and Spears, Kip and Dustin, and that kind of like was the backbone of those tapings. He fought Colt Cabana.
Colt Cabana.
Yeah. And Chad, like, what were your impressions of like the Georgia era, I would say, of AEW, and the massive kind of the ripping of that Blood and Guts away from us, along with like the debut of Brody Lee?
Well, I mean, at that point, I feel like we're all trying to survive, and everything on Dynamite every week is the example of them trying to survive. So there's a bit of a resonance with what they're trying to pull off in what looked like, I'm not even sure where they were, but it looked like some sort of football practice facility. So, there were a couple of matches that stood out from that time that I really enjoyed. There were a lot of Wednesday nights when I was banking on Dynamite to pull me up by the bootstraps and keep me focused on something besides COVID-19. So I remember it fondly. I remember one particular match from that time being Kenny Omega against
Trent Beretta.
Was it Kazarian or was it Trent Beretta? Yeah, it was Trent. Yeah, Trent and Kenny Omega just tore it up. Had one of those really physical matches that you were talking about earlier, James, that, really didn't have any reason to be. It was just like they went out and had a super physical match like you'd see in New Japan. And I remember that night thinking back on it, like, I'm going to remember that match. I would have remembered that if there were 10,000 people in the crowd, just because of it just somewhat feeling routine at that point for great matches to happen in AEW. But for their match at that time, much like Double or Nothing would be a couple of weeks after that, or months or whatever it was after that, it was just rather unexpectedly cathartic.
Yeah. James?
Yeah. I remember the Trent and Omega match. I thought that was like the first good Georgia match that happened, or anyway. But yeah, so one thing I remember about that match was like Kenny takes his bump off the top turnbuckle and he lands like right on one of his shoulders, and I was like, "You idiot!" Like, and it wasn't like some uncontrolled thing. Like, he did it on purpose, and I was like, "You're gonna pop your shoulder out and separate your shoulder." And I was just thinking, like, why are you going so hard for a TV match in front of nobody or whatever else? I'm like, this dude's a psychopath. He just a different mentality than
they're wired different. Like,
yeah, they just wired different. Totally. Every match is where I peak. All right, buddy. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, no days off.
Yeah.
It's like Allen Iverson.
Yeah, another match I want to mention that wasn't the tournament, it wasn't that Omega and Trent match, was Britt Baker versus Karushita. A hell of a match that was totally unexpected. You thought you were going to get a good match, and then it turned out to be way more physical. And I felt like that also, for a person that got hurt by no crowds, Britt Baker getting her nose busted in that match with a fortuitous juice like that helped carry her a little bit further too.
Yeah, she was she's been one of my favorites throughout the whole year. But with the pandemic, before the pandemic, she was just owning crowds left and right. And then that was the match where I remember we had Tanya on with us that week. Yeah. And I made it a point to say, no, we have to talk about Britt Baker, cause we weren't doing like full like show reviews or anything at that time. And I was like, no, we have to talk about her breaking out. I think this is a star making, performance, and it was.
Yeah. I mean, we can get through the tournament like they do Dustin or, Kenny, not Kenny, I'm sorry, I'm losing my mind. Darby and Guevara, they have their second match, and Darby beats him again. Another great match. You get, in the semifinal, you ended up getting, the Cody emotional character stuff with his family getting left in a bloody heap when he beats the shit out of Dustin. Archer beats the shit out of Dustin. Yeah. There was a throw in the towel tease, wasn't there?
Yes.
Yeah. I believe that Cody's going to throw in the towel. Who takes the towel out of his hand? Was it Archer or was it Dustin? I can't remember.
I don't remember.
Yeah. Anyway, towel gets taken out of Cody's hand and thrown back or thrown into the middle of the ring, not by him, and then he just lives in a bloody hole and finishes him. Then we get and then on the other end you have the second. I believe that's the second Darby in Cody match.
Third.
That's the third one. Okay.
Third.
Yeah. Okay.
Second was on New Year.
That's right. This is and the third one is the one the one in Georgia is one with the tilt. So, so that's a very good match as well. And then you end up getting was there a match on pay-per-view or TV? I can't even remember. Archer and Cody for the
Cody and Lance Archer.
Yeah,
that was on Double or Nothing.
It was that. It was that Double or Nothing.
All right, so I guess it's not getting. Is there anything else we can talk about TV, or did we get Double or Nothing?
Brody Lee debuts.
Double or Nothing's a definite good spot to go. Yeah, Brody Lee.
Yeah.
But really, I mean, Brody Lee leading into Double or Nothing,
Yeah. We think it's going to be
a showcase of, okay, this guy more in the tank than WWE ever gave him the opportunity to showcase. Comes in, turns around the Dark Order to that much greater an extent, makes the Dark Order something that worth paying attention to. Just those vignettes where he's acting supposedly like Vince McMahon was just fantastic. Steak and
supposedly
not wanting anybody to make noise or to what is it? What's that Vince McMahon
before him
pet peeve?
No one eats before him.
No one can eat before.
Don't sneeze.
No one sneezes.
Yes, sickness is a sign of weakness. Dress it. You have to dress like a star or look like a star, otherwise you should die. Yeah, there's a bunch of Vince isms. Yeah. Yeah, so he was great with it and came in I can't remember. at one point it was almost like in a particular month, it was like a battle for me. It was like, cause this was Georgia when this all happened, like, who is going to have the better match, the better squash match between, with Marco Stunt, between Brody Lee and Lance Archer. And look, I think Lance Archer had the better squash match, but they were both incredible. They both beat the piss out of that dude. It was fantastic. So from there, that was preparing for Double or Nothing. So that gets us to. Wait a second. Did we skip over? We kind of skipped over MJF and Cody. The match at Revolution.
Well, we didn't talk about Revolution much, but Revolution, one of the most special shows there is. Yeah. I didn't like the match, but like, and apparently the tattoo on Cody's neck distracted a lot of people. It didn't distract me because I don't really know anything about tattoos or anything. I'm just like, oh, whatever. It's a tattoo. People have tattoos, but incredible show.
Yeah,
like looking at the One Nation Radio Award voting. Yeah, the people love this show.
Yeah, we talked about Revolution with the programs that build towards the three big shows, but we forgot about, like, you know, the three big matches. That we forgot about what was the fourth big match. It just didn't work out. It didn't come out in execution out the wash as shiny as the other three. Yeah, just didn't work out. It's just, you know, he blazed off again.
It's divisive. It was not. I mean, it was overbooked.
Yeah, like,
you know? And there is sometimes where that works out really well, and I thought it worked out really well in that match. Like, I remember listening to the One Nation review of Revolution and just and thinking, nope, don't agree with these guys on this one. Like, I really enjoyed that match. Like, I mean, it wasn't a match of the year. I don't think it ever needed to be. I think it was a vehicle that basically laid out pretty clearly Cody is the better man, but MJF is opportunistic.
Yeah.
A top caliber wrestler, as you're going to see on this roster, and he's going to be a bad guy, and you better get used to it because he's going to go do bad guy things. And you know the way because the story was so strong going into it. I thought that carried. I thought it carried it from bell to bell. So I mean, I don't think it was awesome, but I thought it was on the lower level of what it needed to be. So, but not to the point where it took away. Nothing could take away from Revolution's show. Like, that complete product. You know, you can question some things about it. It's not perfect. No wrestling show really is. But top to bottom, the emotional peaks and valleys on that night, with all of the momentum of those television shows behind it. Revolution, if it wins your pay-per-view of the year award, and I voted for it, I mean, to me, it's one of the stronger pay-per-views of the last years. So, awesome.
Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah, I can't get
Double or Nothing was awesome too, though.
Yes, it was.
Yes, it was.
We'll get to it, but like, I didn't expect Double or Nothing. Like, but I want to cut you off. Go ahead, James.
Yeah, I just can't get over the blading off of the socked foot. It's like, what are you doing? I was like, what are y'all doing? So, like, I do appreciate the story of Cody, like, beating the piss out of MJF, and it proves that, like, even though he is, you know, some whatever version of evil you want to call him, he is tough enough to withstand that kind of thing and still, you know, win this a blood feud or whatever else.
Remember when MJF showed up looking like the Miz, like that man had that overtan.
Yeah. All right, so we fast forward and get back to where we were in place to get to Double or Nothing. We had the TNT title match. We had Hangman and Kenny versus, I can't remember.
Nope, Stadium Stampede.
Oh, that's right.
That was Stadium Stampede.
Stadium Stampede. We ended up getting the push for the AEW title between Moxley and Brody Lee. We get Sheeta versus Nyla Rose. Was that last man standing or no DQ? What was the rule for that match?
No, it was no DQ.
No DQ.
Jungle Boy versus MJF.
Yes. Trying to think, what did Jericho?
Casino
he's in the
ladder
Stadium
match.
Stampede. Who had a
Brian
ladder
Cage
match?
debuted.
Brian Cage debuted.
Yes, was that
It was the casino ladder match.
That's right. Yep. And that's
Top to
also,
bottom, a fantastic show.
Yeah.
I remember going into it and like not being not being thrilled with the build. Quite frankly, having to that's strictly looking back at it now. It's like the adjustment to the COVID world. So going into it, I thought we were going to get the dud pay-per-view. I thought that actually ended up being All Out instead, but it was like the builds were in reverse because like the builds to All Out was great. And then, or it was good, but Double or Nothing on that night, it was like, wow, this is like almost as good as Revolution.
Yeah, and that definitely,
in some ways, it was better.
And that's definitely because of the Stadium Stampede match.
The start there,
yeah, it pretty much. You have all these weird. You still have all the same dynamics from the backlash of the AEW tag title match from Revolution, and how they're going to handle that. And obviously, this is clearly blood and guts, but ported into a cinematic match in the stadium. You had the Matt Hardy and Kenny Omega match versus Jericho in, was that Guevara?
Sammy.
Yeah, and Guevara match that also helped set this up.
Fight.
We hadn't seen, a lot of the inner circle around like Santana Ortiz for forever. At the end of that match, they show up. They have the great shot of them with the Jaguars Jumbotron in the background saying inner circle as they close that show. Jericho may not have the title, but because because of the Moxley feud, like they still have a lot of momentum and oomph to them. So they didn't take on the baby faces. The baby faces rightfully beat the shit out of them. But yeah, it was a fun ass, half hour, 25-minute watch, Stadium Stampede. Absolutely was. Whether or not they were a Hangman on the team, which we all knew he was going to show up, but it was like the tease of whether or not he was going to do it was also important.
Chad, what did you think about the Stadium Stampede?
I thought the Stadium Stampede match was probably the best cinematic pro wrestling experience to date. It was a total blast. I think back on that show as a whole, Stadium Stampede being its peak as exactly what I need moment to snap out of the funk I'd fallen slowly into over the previous 10 weeks. It was that kind of great to me as a show. And, Stadium Stampede was just a blast. It was just fun. It was everything that we needed it to be. I remember watching it on replay about 10 days later with a friend of mine who rarely watches the pay-per-views, but is an avid week-to-week viewer of Dynamite. And that was the impression we came out of it with was, man, that was a blast. And as was the whole show, top to bottom. You look for, there's a couple of matches on there that are thrown there in the middle to give everybody a breather. But in terms of consistency across the entire show, quality-wise, that's as good a show as you'll see.
Yeah, it had all the comedy. It had all the well-thought-out spots, the insane finish, just the feeling of like, wow, this is taking us out of this reality that we're in right now. And just incredible storytelling, like with them at the bar and, the presentation. I'm big on that. In the WWE portion, I talked about the presentation with the Roman Reigns versus Jey Uso match at Clash of the Champions, where they brought out Alpha and Sika and everything like that. Well, in this wacky world of the Stadium Stampede, they're in a stadium, the Jag Stadium. The Inner Circle shows up dressed as football players. Heyman's riding a fucking horse. Like, bro, it's just nuts, like all up and down. And then that fucking lunatic, Sammy Guevara, signs up to take the one-winged angel as a 20-foot drop. Like, you got Matt Hardy doing all the Laker reincarnation stuff with the Jaguars pool there. It don't get much better.
That was hilarious.
Yeah, man. MJF and Jungle Boy were awesome on this. I always try to remember that match because I feel like it could get lost, and this really showed MJF could work. And a lot of people didn't know that, I think, and this one was like, put those rumors to bed that, and if you don't get it with
I didn't
MJF,
know that.
Yeah. So, like, this guy can work. And then Jungle Boy, like, that's a generational rivalry. Jungle Boy and MJF, look forward to seeing those guys run it for years and years and years. They're both, like, 25 years old. So, Jungle Boy maybe even younger.
I think a lot of the MJF does not work things because he screwed up the Crossroads once or twice. I think that's really all it comes down to.
Yeah. And, Chad's guy, Brian Cage, coming in, and then that being the centerpiece of, one of the quiet best factions of the year, Team Taz.
Yeah, another one for another great addition of Brian Cage and Taz. It's like you get that match where he comes in, wins, screws over Darby, which we still haven't even gotten that match yet, which is crazy thinking about it. Darby and Cage is coming. But the fact that they were able to like do that while elevating Darby without just like beating him immediately is like that was cool. So you have that. He goes straight for the title with Moxley. Taz and Moxley proceed to just be like, who is the sharper tongued the sharper tongued tough guy, and it's like, all right, you got Moxley, who is the CZW guy, and then you have the old-time ECW guy talking about who's really tough, and you're like, we're going to beat your ass with the machine. It was so good, and Taz jumps, or not Taz, but Cage jumps him, and they get power bombing him into the back of a car window. It was just fun television. Like, it was something that felt like a pay-per-view build, but like it was just for TV. It was really cool.
Yeah. Also, Mox and Brody Lee.
Yeah.
Woo.
They had the big WWE main event title pay-per-view match, and they had it in AEW. Like, the crash through the stage or the horizontal ramp. Like that is a, the barricade broke, the ring post gave out. Like that was like the best version of either one of them ever had wrestling, the quote unquote WWE modern main event style.
When the unfortunate news passed down that Brody Lee had died recently, there were three moments that came into my mind that I just felt, okay, this is terrible news. I'm glad that he got to have these three particular moments on a major stage, showcasing how he was always capable of being. Mm-hmm. One of them was when he's standing across the ring from Mox before this match, where they've got this wall of people lined between them because these guys can't be allowed to go after each other until the bell rings. It's a great moment. You just kind of see them staring across the ring from each. Brody Lee looking like a badass, ready to just go to war, and just him being in that moment and having that opportunity, which clocked 2 months prior to that, no one in the world would have guessed that Brody Lee would be standing across the ring from the world champion, about to have a match that all are going to look back on very fondly when we discuss pay-per-views like Double or Nothing 2020 in the future. When this show inevitably comes back up for future, this will always be a match we talk about with reverence. So I thought that's a cool moment for Brody Lee, and anyone associated with Brody Lee, anybody who looks at his career, sees all those years lost kind of as something lesser than he could have been, and then for him to have that moment was awesome.
Yeah. And also the part of the story of it is like, he's still Moxley's title. He steals it. And like, he shows up like as a challenger with the belt on and around his waist and around his shoulder. Like, it was just a cool thought of like, yeah, I've always liked feuds like that where it's like, it's a title match and like the challenger has stolen the title. I tend to like that because it's like, that's what wrestling is about. It's like, we are two people fighting to the top and we have to go through each other eventually. What are we fighting for? Oh, this belt? Oh, X, Y, or Z, whatever other thing. All right, well, I'm going to take that thing from you before you actually earned it. That burns me up. I'm going to murder you now. Like, it's really easy. It's really easy. So yeah. I guess we get into the summer now. You want to go to FTR now?
Yeah, FTR arrives, and this is like the hot summer, as they would say. Wrestling out in Jacksonville during the summertime, I imagine was not a pleasant experience. I went to All Out, and I can tell you, sitting in the crowd, it was difficult at times because it was so damn hot. I couldn't imagine being in the ring. But FTR comes in, fresh off their release from WWE, and I think they roll in like with a lot of momentum, and start doing some good stuff in the beginning there. Chad, when you saw FTR come here, I mean, we already knew what it was. Like, we knew like they were getting to the Bucks, but how did you feel about seeing these guys get free and show up here in AEW?
Considering that the tag team division anchored AEW in its early existence, it was sort of the thing you could look at AEW for and say that's what makes them distinct as best tag team division in the world. For a team that had once challenged for best tag team in the world to be added to the mix already established was absolutely freaking incredible. Showed up. I mean, to me, that's one of the moments of the year for AEW is right after Double or Nothing when they show up, because I'm sitting there thinking, holy crap, Revival is here. And so for them to go on to have the year they had, it was validating to everything that we knew that they could do. And then that narrative keeps coming back when you talk about under this WWE people is we thought they could do more. We knew they could do more. They'd proven they could do more, but they could do that they could go to an environment opportunity to maximize what they can be for this industry is just is something that I hope never feels like it gets old to me, because moments like that with FTR, with Brody Lee this year in particular was just fantastic. And I love that feeling. So FTR, I thought, as characters, they did a job. As wrestlers, they did a great job. So, excellent when they came in. I could not have been more excited to see. I don't know who else would have brought the same kind of feeling for me. It just kind of felt like a big deal. It'd be like, the best in any kind of division, and like, who's the men's wrestler in the world? If you knew that, you were very aware of that, then she showed up in AEW one day, you'd be thinking, sweet, we're continuing to roll with this sucker. This is an amazing product. It just gets that much better every time they bring in someone who's ready to contribute at the highest level.
Yeah, man. James, what do you think about FTR's impact? And then also to add in, and I'll get back to you on this, Chad, like, essentially this is the time that Cody starts the TNT Open Challenge.
Yeah, real quick. For me, FTR they may have been our last cut off of AEW Wrestler of the Year as an act. Like, the Young Bucks made it. They were the only tag team that made it. Like, Lucha Bros didn't make it. FTR didn't make it. They, while we don't think, aside from really one match, they peaked at the level of the Hangmans, the Lucha Bros, the Kenny Omegas, the Young Bucks in AEW. They did consistently put out like crank out 3.5, 3 3/4, occasionally a 4-star thing. And then, like, their best match, in my opinion, in AEW is, their two best matches is, the match with the Young Bucks and also, that 8-man tag. So, like, it's not like they didn't put in good work. Like, they had a bunch of good matches, a bunch of them. Like, the one with Private Party I liked a lot in particular, cause they were able to do, like, their classic heel stuff that we've seen them do before. The stuff with Lucha Bros didn't work out in the way that we thought that it would, except for that one match when the Young Bucks were in there. But, I'm sure if they had another go at it, it would work a lot better.
Yeah. I thought like FTR when they came in with a lot of momentum. I enjoyed some of their more understated stuff, like with Butcher and the Blade, who are one of my cult acts that I like. And I think that whatever they lacked in the promo stuff, and it's tough to get in their promos because sometimes I think they just don't get it, but ultimately they are a value piece of the roster because they're veterans. And if they can do nothing else, AEW has a lot of young tag teams that can work with FTR potentially, and that might be their true value to the company. Maybe I had it wrong with them. Like, yes, we're here for the Young Bucks and FTR match. However, now that that's out the way, it's like, well, at my first glance, I was like, well, what do they really have left? Like, I'm like, well, these guys can be as good of teachers as there could be in the promotion.
Yes, there's that. And I also don't think they're done with the Young Bucks. I think just that's like, they're going to have another match again in 2021 eventually. But, now that we've seen what the Young Bucks have done since Full Gear when they're wrestling, Kenny and Hangman, FTR and the Young Bucks have basically cleared out like that 2019, early 2020 roster of tag teams. Like there's a second wave that was on, Dark that they're FTR and the Young Bucks are about to mow through to keep themselves away from each other in the time, for the time being. So yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to the most out of FTR is like, all right, the Young Bucks are getting to these guys first now. Now you guys have to go behind them and wrestle these guys second. And, this should keep you occupied for now and keep you away from that. Keep you away from the Young Bucks.
So the TNT Open Challenge with Cody, Chad, I don't know about you, but I thought this was like the core of the summer. Cody's getting people jobs. You get guys that debut like Ricky Starks and Eddie Kingston, and they're even bringing people from the indie scene like Warhorse. I've been particularly like Warhorse, but that's fine. And then like individual young people getting shots at them like Jungle Boy, Mark Quinn, Sonny Kiss, Scorpio. Do you think this held up to other open challenges of the past, or do you think that this is like kind of like what do you think about when you hear about the Cody title reign?
Well, I mean, I will readily admit, I think that for me, it tends to get lost in the shuffle with all the other great stuff that AEW did throughout the year. It's not one of the first things that comes to mind when we're talking about product across 2020. But I certainly look back on it fondly for all the reasons that you mentioned. And I thought any opportunity that Cody gets to really value to what he's trying to accomplish with this company. I mean, he's put some would argue, I'd probably be one of them. He's put an unnecessary ceiling on what he can achieve in storylines with not being able to go after the world title. So how he figures out ways to keep himself doing varying things, elevating other people, and the championships that he does go for continues to be a pretty interesting story to me, because Cody is obviously one of the foundational players for you. I think that the opportunities that he gave to Ricky Starks and Eddie Kingston in particular, that to me stands out as an achievement in a year where we're defining what Cody Rhodes does on almost a different scale than everybody else, because we're talking about him more from the angles and story type stuff that he can do, often more so than what he gets done bell to bell. I think the open challenge story was a good one for Woods and for everybody else, and for AEW as a whole because of that impact.
James?
Yeah, it was up and down, and it's not because of effort or lack of effort. Actually, it's a lot of Cody's going to do what Cody does, and for better or for worse, right? And sometimes that works out splendidly, sometimes it doesn't. Like I don't really need for him to blade against Jungle Boy because you ran into a wall, like whatever. And then like you look at other things, like even the thing that didn't work with Warhorse is like nothing that happened that didn't work out in that Warhorse match was Cody's fault. He was as giving as he possibly could have been, right? And it just didn't work out because the dude just didn't have it that particular night or whatever else. But I really enjoyed the Mark Quinn match. I really enjoyed the Kingston match, even though like the last 30 seconds is like but yeah, I thought he did a very good job with it. And my expectations for it were somewhere in the middle, and I feel like he reached higher than me thinking it was going to be just okay. I would say it was good, right? Flat out good. And it also was a nice way to showcase all these people. Like obviously, some of the weeks, like it felt like, damn man, it could have been Scorpio Sky or whatever else that could have won this thing. But that's if we're going to present people on top and push people, you got to beat some people. And like that's one of the things I like about AEW and Stardom and New Japan is like, we're going to beat you. Like nobody's immune from, nobody's immune and nobody's super protected or whatever else, or being protected in those kind of ways where we got to do garbage finishes to protect someone from getting beat. Like if we're going to beat somebody, we're going to pin their ass to the mat or we're going to make them submit.
Yeah. And pretty much everything you guys said, like about TNT title, I'll just say, he dropped it in electric fashion,
yes.
Getting squashed by Brody Lee and had me like pumping my fists in the air just with the awesomeness of like Brody Lee just fucking killing him, and then the after the match dumping Arn Anderson off the gurney, Anna Jay choking out Brandy, them dumping the broken old funky TNT title, throwing it on him, like just an all time like just I'm fired up moment. Like it was a Saturday, it was by itself, it was on this weird day, and it just beautiful.
Yeah. I think
that was the second great Brody Lee moment.
Yeah. Like the perfect touch for me was like, we've seen Brandy at times in matches between Ring of Honor and maybe even AEW, but also New Japan, where like she will jump on top of Cody because, no man will hit a woman, obviously. So what they end up doing to, all that stuff they did that you mentioned, and then all of a sudden, like, Brandy does her thing where she lays out over Cody, mercy, 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 here's your mercy. 99, Anna Jay, come out and choke her the fuck out. there will be no mercy in this dojo. It was just incredible. It was incredible. It was one of the top, moments or angles of the year. It really was.
And I guess, like, going forward from that, like, from here, FTR is, like, gearing up. Young Bucks are on a tear throughout the summer. Hikaru Shida's been beating everybody like a drum. We didn't really talk much about her, of course, and the women's division. We might as well like get that in now because like COVID got them, international travel got them, and for honestly, I don't have a problem with them cutting back the use and the focus really because like I'll never forget, like, when the ring announcer gets called into action, like, you just ain't got enough people.
I don't think they necessarily pulled back or gave less time to stuff. Like, I mean, this was even before the travel restrictions. We still had, we would have, like, maybe, like, 1 out of 8 shows where, like, there just was no women's match. So, like, that wasn't... So for me, it's like, they kind of got the same time they always got. It's just they had less availability to the people they wanted to give it to. So, like, if it were for me to, like, summarize this year for AEW, would be Britt got hot during the heel turn. The pandemic cut off her fan base, or cut off the fans. So she had, and then she got hurt. Nyla and Riho had a great, title match. Nyla was a very good monster champion. She dropped it off to Shida. They had a very good, great match, to get it to Shida. Shida was a very good champion. She had weak challengers because there was nobody that, like, they had to import the people. Correct. They had to import those people, the people that would have been those people, and they weren't able to be imported because there was a COVID ban, right? So, they made the best out of what they did, what they could. Like they brought in Thunder Rosa, and once Thunder Rosa came in, they had good matches with Shida. They had a good tag match. They did the women's tag league tournament on YouTube, or whatever else. Like that's about the gist of their year in 2020. Unless you want to throw out Abaddon.
I would like to throw out Abaddon while we're at it.
Yeah, I would too.
Yeah.
I think that it's pretty simple. You can summarize the AEW Championship year very quickly. There's not a whole lot to it. Hikaru Shida has been a good foundational champion. I think that she's been for AEW in 2020 what I think Riho was supposed to be early on. She's just a good champion. You know, she helps build the foundation for the title, but the women's division's not going anywhere so long as its champion has no personality. And with respect to Hikaru Shida, this is not New Japan. This is not Stardom. You know, if you want to get over and you want to be a big part of the show, you got to talk. You know, you got to be able to go out there and cut a promo. Part of the reason why it was a good idea to make Chris Jericho the champion to start out is because he could go out a week and cut and talk for 5 to 10 minutes and get people engaged. And if you don't have that skill, or you don't have the ability to develop that skill because of a language barrier, then quite frankly, I think the only thing I would disagree with you, James, is that they did not put their best foot forward, because I think the way that they should have gone, that would have done two things. It would have established the division more from a character point of view, and it would have still accomplished having good matches with a lot of different people. I think they should have kept the title on Nyla Rose. I think the run as a monster heel with establishing that championship would have been the way to go, because as she proved in her limited time with that title, she could cut a promo. You know, why they put her with Vicky Guerrero, why they've dropped the ball with her, I'm not sure. But if the goal was just to put the title on someone who can work, well, I mean, that's fine, but that's also going to be the basis for people criticizing the division, because the thing that people don't have in the division is any kind of investment emotionally. And you're not going to be able to do that just by having good matches with a bunch of different people. Shida was a great champion. The match that Chanel beat Ford that I think you guys thought was overrated and I thought was properly rated. Great performance at Fyter Fest. The matches she Rosa and so on and so forth. She is, it's time for her to lose the title. Britt Baker needs to be the champion now. It's that simple.
Yes,
that's when the division.
We picked next.
Put the title on Britt Baker. Let's get back to that match that you guys praised a little while ago. Let's do it on pay-per-view. Let's make the title change, and let's press forward. Now, I will, with all of those comments being a little bit more on the constructively critical side, I don't care. Like, it's not a problem for me that AEW's women's division is behind the other divisions right now, because it doesn't have the right person to drive it forward, whereas every other division they've got has got a plethora of people who can step in and take up a ton of television time and lead to matches that people care about. I think the women's division will get there. This was not a year that I think helped it that much, but it did help set a foundation with Shida as champion.
Yeah, as far as you saying that they should have stayed on with Nyla's, like, okay, so I'm if they never get to Shida as the champion, who are the challengers on the babyface side? Like, because, I mean, she already beaten Statlander by Revolution, Nyla. So I'm thinking in my mind, like, who would be these babyfaces she'd be challenging? Like, they had nothing. The cupboard was kind of bare for babyfaces in that division.
I don't know. I mean, I think you can bring in Thunder Rosa just the same and have the same kind of match, champion versus champion. I think that Thunder Rosa was really anywhere, any kind of major heel when they brought her in by any means. She was just a champion from another company. You can run back Shida all the same in the gaps trying to find somebody. But you were doing that the same with the roster as is constructed around Shida as champion. You're just trying to find a few people here and there to help keep the championship and her relevant. But if you do that with Nyla Rose, then you have the belt on someone who can go out there and fill in some of the gaps week to week with a 5-minute talking segment where you're developing her for further and further. Maybe you take, I don't know whatever happened to Kia Stevens, but you could have run that as a monster versus monster type thing.
Mm-hmm. Kia Stevens.
Kia Stevens.
Yeah. She can't get cleared. She can't get cleared to wrestle. So it is what it is with that one. Yeah. All All right. Okay, so after that, where were we in the timeline before we moved on to Women's Division?
Yeah, like
right around All Out.
Yeah, right around All Out. So this was around the time we got the Mox and MJF feud. You got MJF going, or excuse me, you've got FTR and Hangman and Kenny. The blow up of the Bucks and Hangman. Trying to think what else was on All Out. Yeah. One Nation Radio.
Yeah, I mean, you also have the Matt. You also, well, hold on. You also have the. Do you mention the Matt Hardy and Sammy Guevara thing?
I did not.
Yeah, that happened on that one. Yeah, so I'm trying to think. Well, I can't remember what the. Oh, was it when did Thunder Rosa come in? Was Thunder Rosa at All Out too?
It was this show. Yep.
Yep.
And also the damn Mimosa match. So the Orange Cassidy, Chris Jericho.
God.
We haven't talked much about Orange Cassidy on this show. Of course, he had the awesome match with Pac at Revolution, and it kind of culminated in this goofy match here on this show.
It was a great feud. They went 2 matches longer than it should have went.
Yeah. But yeah, I was at this show. Had a fun time with my friends. Thought the Bucks match was awesome. I like Moxley and MJF. I was extremely disappointed by the tag team title match. And I like the women's match, but the rest of this show, like, this is by far the worst major show in AEW history. And this one had a lot, I think, to do with the weather, but it didn't get helped by any of the booking or the wrestling. When we have the tooth and nail match, as well as Matt Hardy and Sammy Guevara happening in this match, or this same show, along with like the 8-man tag of like the Cody defense team against the Dark Order, it don't quite, hit for me.
Yeah, for me, it was a good pay-per-view. It wasn't a great pay-per-view.
Agreed.
Yeah, I guess not really much, on it, but check out that pay-per-view review if you want some quality rantage. I was very disappointed by the tag match. The tag match had "This Is Awesome" chants before as soon as the bell rang, and it just didn't. I don't know what happened. But that's the start of the Kenny Omega and Hangman Page kind of split. Kenny presents the Young Bucks with a choice to join him. They do not, and it leads us kind of into the modern day, status for AEW. So from there, we get the World Title Eliminator Tournament and the Fallout. Cody returns and gets that that extra match with Brody Lee to where the dog collar match. Also, you got the Bucks starting to fire up on all cylinders. Like their match with Jurassic Express is kind of like their road back to the belts to lead up to Full Gear.
Also, the match where where Dick's the private party.
Yep. And then this is the FTR Bucks build. Chad, maybe you can help us understand if there was things about this build that we missed. Were there any?
I don't think so. I remember listening to you guys talk with Sam about it leading up to that show, leading up to Full Gear, and I don't think you really missed anything. The one thing I would say is that I think what they might have been going was just that you didn't really have to do a lot to sell that particular match. It was something that you put FTR versus the Young Bucks on the marquee for the World Tag Titles, and it pretty much sells itself. It's kind of like Rock Hogan in a way. You didn't really need to do an angle where the NWO runs over the Rock with a truck while he's in an ambulance. I mean, just, you want to go one-on-one with the great one? Yes. Okay. Handshake deal. All right, cool. You're done. That's it. You don't need else. That's just some things sells it. Some things just sell themselves. And So I suspect what we will end up getting is more of an down the road where we get a lot more of the television build. They had their dream match. What they presented was exactly that. You would not you would have needed any build up to have the match they had at Full Gear. It was great on its own merits based on just being like almost like a Legends match. It just sort of held up that way. When you go watch it on replay, there's not that deeper emotional thing there. But for what they presented, I thought the build was okay. That just kind of was what it was, you know? I mean, it wasn't a hit. It was that type of thing where if you're trying to rate it between 3 stars and 5 when you're being kind, you know, you'd say they did the bare minimum effort to get us where we'd be excited to see them fight. But they didn't do anything else beyond that by any means.
Yeah. James, FTR Bucks Bill, what you got?
They slow rolled it out, and by the time... And, you know, they did some things right, like the thing with Hangman and FTR. I felt like they let go of that particular thread too quick. They should have kept it on to where, like, you know, maybe Hangman does end up with these guys in some type of some type of you know,
what?
Trio, some type of trio, especially given that, you know, where we are now with all these numbers of trios and factions we have in AEW. That would have been a cool one to have, you know, the Cowboy in, you know, in the Brainbusters together. But it didn't work out that way. The Young Bucks, they're just motivations all between it. Like, you know, they weren't necessarily in that match. Like, given what we got in the match, like, they weren't necessarily, super angry with FTR, even though FTR, like, gaslit their stupid friend. And, you know, the injury angle as well, the whole part about, you know, if we don't win, we'll never challenge for the belts ever again. A lot of this stuff was just like, I felt was unnecessary. I liked where they were going when they were first, like, tagging together at times, and FTR said, y'all been talking a lot of shit on Twitter. We're here now. We're going to make sure nobody jumps you because we want you fresh, so there's no excuse when we beat you. I like that a lot more than where they ended up ultimately. And, like, the thing that's so weird about it is they got to where they ended up, like, almost in, like, a heartbeat, and you was like, wait, what? All right, well, here's the match, so don't really pay too much attention to the fact that we've careened this into a ditch, but, you know, ultimately we said, like, they're gonna have to save it in the match, and they did, regardless of whether or not you think this is some all-time classic match, or if you think it's just a great match. They had a great match. That's really what I'm here for, more than anything else.
Yeah, top of this Full Gear card was Jon Moxley and a guy Eddie Kingston, who is just kind of came out like a whirlwind over this year. When Eddie Kingston debuted, it was like, oh shit! Like, there are a lot of guys that, you know, that do a lot of things in wrestling, but the simplest thing you can do is hold the microphone. And what he does with that is sucks you all the way in, and the wrestling's like good enough, or even very good at times, to where he can. I think he's a guy that you can put any babyface in with, because Eddie Kingston isn't shit, and he tells you he isn't shit. Like, he's just the definition of reality. Like, he's like out of the Kevin Owens, Samoa Joe tree. Like, it's, you know,
yeah, like,
he's up there.
Yeah, like if MJF and Eddie Kingston were two sides of the same coin, it would be like, yes, the coin is they're scumbags. The difference is, on one side, Eddie Kingston is a bit endearing in that way, where it's like you can see him becoming a babyface. Like, he's a likable scumbag. Oh yeah, right. Whereas, like, MJF is like, nah, fuck that guy. No, thank you. I don't interact with that dude ever. If he years down the line, if he's at like one of these WrestleCon type things, like, nah, bro, why would you go interact with that dude? It's not gonna be pleasant. It's not gonna be pleasant.
Talk to you in gimmick,
right? And we've seen him do that at these Starcast things where he's just a dick to fans.
You know,
no thanks.
This Moxley and Kingston program, Chad. What did you make of this?
Well, I mean, Eddie Kingston to me is one of those. He's one of the more interesting. A lot of people have this glowing opinion of him, and I still find myself like, yes, this guy is an engaging talker.
Mm-hmm.
He is also who, when I was watching NWA Power for the first 4 months of the year, was getting beaten in 8 minutes by nobodies. So to see him jump from that to the world title was really challenging for me. And it was on the strength of their talking segments leading up to Full Gear that I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, I'm fine. The rest of this card is so good that, I mean, I can get on board with this for the world title. But it wasn't one of those things where I looked at, okay, I can get on board with that as a pay-per-view main event. I was like, this is a perfect chance to do a tag team match in the main event because it deserves it. It's, it's something you put it up on the marquee and it's like, bam, that's a dream tag team match. I'd love to see that. Eddie Kingston versus Jon Moxley. I mean, it wasn't something I felt like I needed to see on a pay-per-view. So kudos to Eddie Kingston for making himself, for maximizing his opportunity. But that's the type of guy who I'm going to be real curious to see what they do with him moving forward, because I can't say that I'm itching to see him against anybody. I think that his ability to build them up sounds great. Not overly impressed by what I see in the ring. I was not overly impressed at all by that main event of Full Gear. I thought it dragged the show down a notch. So to me, Eddie Kingston, to me, it would be the type of guy I'd love to see more of a managerial role, like an MVP type role, like they're doing with the Hurt Business on Monday night. Put him backing somebody else, put him as the hype man for someone else. Let that be a huge part of what leads to whatever comes next. But I can't say with any honesty that I'm anywhere close to as high on Eddie Kingston's year as a lot of people are.
James?
The Kingston build, it came out of nowhere, and seemingly like in the span of like 4 promos over 3 weeks, it felt like the hottest TV program AEW had. And that's also coinciding with like, the tag teams crashing, the AEW tag team program crashing into a ditch. So like for me, it was like, for a while I was like, that should main event the tag match, and then it's like, this Eddie Kingston and Moxie thing where like they're doing basically like a character analysis of this man's entire life in front of you, like that. For me, that was so gripping, and I was like, yeah, do that. I thought it was a very good match. I didn't think it was necessarily great, but I enjoyed the fact that like they went out there and they were very physical, and it didn't go that long. So it was also efficient in that way. Especially, and it felt like, that whole entire card was pretty efficient. Like it felt like almost everything except for the Young Bucks match, like seemingly went like a little shorter than it should have by a little bit, like a minute or 3. So, for me, I thought it was overall success because it's like that was like just spot duty. That was a spot duty tag match. Like, it was like they had nothing for Moxley and they just pull out their ass. And for me, like the TV was so good, it was like that should be up there as some of the best television we saw on AEW this year.
Yeah, man. I liked the feud a lot because I thought the talking was just like when they talk about like Terry Funk versus like Jerry Lawler or something, like this is what I feel like it would be. Like super talking and then like just a wild ass brawl at the pay-per-view. I think Full Gear was their best show, like from a wrestling standpoint. Up for the year. You got the World Title Eliminator Tournament Finals with Kenny going over Hangman, and just like a wonderful sprint that if it goes 5 more minutes, we're talking about like, super match of the year candidate. And I think that the entire tournament in itself, where you got your Hangman and Wardlow, you got different things like Kenny Omega go through Pentagon to get
Pentagon and Phoenix.
Pentagon and Phoenix, like Phoenix missing, like Pentagon and Phoenix doing their match, but him getting put out of the match to, we're going to get that match next week. So them not forgetting about that. The re-emergence of Kenny Omega as a single star kind of started before this tournament and crested here at the pay-per-view, I'd say. The the amazing entrance, naming all the stuff that drives people insane, and just kind of sticking it to everyone, and was really great. All throughout this, you got Orange Cassidy and John Silver. John Silver became a thing on BTE over with the Dark Order, being the number 2 man for Brody Lee. Orange Cassidy, now he's on the other side of a cult favorite. Kind of crazy how fast things happen there for you. But this is an excellent show up and down. And then you got the tag title match. Chad, that tag title match. What did this mean to you when this happened?
Oh man, what did it mean to me? Well, probably not as much as it could have meant to some. I think that right now I'm in where, for me, being someone who's caught up with the Young Bucks largely through what they've done in AEW, there's this mythology they're still building, and building it quite quickly, I will add. FTR having established itself during probably the peak of my adult wrestling fandom with that 2016 ad, the last year of my peak as just a total diehard guy who enjoys passionately hosting a weekly podcast like I've done for so long as well. FTR developed a reputation for me as someone who I really wanted to see in a spotlight situation just like this. So it was really more for me, more of a competition standpoint of thinking, okay, this is just not something that happens very often, that we see 2 tag teams on this level be given the chance to have a kind of match like this. You could actually make the argument that, I mean, in mainstream, big picture, like major promotion wrestling, we've just not seen it that much. I mean, because this was not a mid-card tag team title situation. This was not this carried with it, going back to WCW, this carried with it the same kind of spark that a Steiner Brothers versus Sting and Lex Luger had at Super Brawl 1. Mm-hmm. But it was actually 2 tag teams that had reached that kind of, could have main evented that show had AEW's brass made that call. And I don't think anyone really would have batted an eyelash at it. For tag team wrestling to have reached that was special without question. So it was less of a dream match for me because of the teams involved, and more a region where tag team wrestling itself was getting this wonderful stage and this golden opportunity to be the one match on the show, like a Ric Flair world title match back in the day. Everybody works 15 minutes so that when you get to Ric Flair's match and he goes for 40, no one's had the chance to work in the kind of stuff that you would expect of a long match of that caliber previous to them getting that chance on the night. And now it's the tag team division being given that chance with the champions in a position of real authority in the company as one of the top drawing acts, and the challengers being just as much of a top drawing act, if not more so. And it just a huge place for tag team wrestling to have reached.
Yeah, man. But I guess after that, with the fallout, talking about the Kenny Omega versus Jon Moxley. So the World Title Eliminator Tournament, Kenny comes out at the end of the night and let it be known we got winners coming, and the debut of Sting, and Shaq shows up, and the numbers, for the show start, pop, just start going up around that same time. And it feels like AEW's hitting another peak, in a sense. And we get the, you got us 3 covering winner is coming off of that. So we don't need to do a whole full review on that, but got the, title change flipping from Moxley to Kenny. Kenny's new character taking the belt in a different direction with Don Callis. We've now found out he's going to be headlining the pay-per-view, this month with Impact. Moxley hasn't been seen since the title match. He'll be making his return next week. And the death of Brody Lee, and ultimately the Brody Lee tribute show. So, how did you make the, and I'll go to James first on this one. The end of the year, the December for AEW, it's such a whirlwind. How did you, how'd you like all this pretty much?
It was weird. Like, I felt like for the first time, after the title change for Omega to, Moxley, I felt like the first time, up until obviously this past because of the Brody, tribute show, like, I felt like there were two shows in the middle of December where I was just like, there's a Young Bucks match, and then there's like a bunch of promos and stuff that I like, but like as far as the wrestling in the ring, I was kind of just into it. But like, I still had the Young Bucks matches to hold me over. There might be something else I'm just forgetting. There might be like some Kazarian match, Kazarian do nothing but go hard. But yeah, like Pat came back. Death Triangle is a face group seemingly, so that's really cool. But yeah, I just it felt like we're kind of in the waiting stages to get to program time, and it seems like things are about to. It would have picked up this week. They'll pick up over the next 2 weeks when they get through their 2020 to 2021 stuff that was delayed a week.
Yeah. Chad, same question.
I think it's interesting the direction they're taking things at with the top. Since we talked last, we've seen them flesh out the Kenny Omega as champion dynamic and him traveling the world and going and doing the Triple H and now about to be on Impact's Hard to Kill pay-per-view. I think it's interesting. I'm very curious to see where they take it next because it is definitely different. It's different than the more standard pro wrestling type of character arcs that we saw from Jericho and then from Moxley thereafter. I feel like this is when they're going to try to kind of up and see what they can really do. I think we all know that we're going to be in the pandemic era of wrestling for a good bit longer. So time to just ratchet up the creative juices, which you can accomplish. Obviously the Brody Lee tragedy is just awful. And the tribute show they did for him was wonderful, about as good a show as you'll ever see. I thought it was very touching that 977,000 people tuned in to watch that show. It's one of the most watched Dynamites ever. For it to be a tribute speaks volumes about AEW and its fan base, in my opinion. So I think that's a really cool thing. But there's a lot of people who you look to 2021 and you start to wonder what kind of years they're going to have. So I think it's a good place to kind of wrap it up when you talk about 2020 is there's a lot of good things they've got going on moving into 2021, a lot of interesting characters, a lot of different directions they can take. They're going to be pushing the envelope in ways they haven't yet with additions of guys like Shaq and, what they're trying to do with Sting. A lot of big questions need to be answered, but I'm curious to see how they go. And I've developed through the year 2020 trust that they're going to figure it out and do it well.
Yeah, I think that's a great place to leave it. I'm very excited as well about the world title scene, and I think getting the belt on Kenny right now, knowing that the miles that he has on him, this is the perfect time to do it. So whenever he needs to quote unquote go get fixed, we can get like some quality work from him in the meantime, and exciting work with Don Callis coming in. The Young Bucks are tag champs now, and the Bucks have turned their attention towards like some of the lower ranked teams, running through before they build back up to whoever their main program is going to be with. Dark Order is going to be, a big question now with Brody Lee's unfortunate passing away. How does it continue? They're going to have to answer a lot of those questions, but they had a lot of questions to answer a year ago too about the Dark Order, and they figured that out. Unfortunately, there's not going to be a Brody Lee to navigate them this time. So with that, he was able to, to help make a couple of stars in that group. So I think they'll be fine as a unit. James mentioned Death Triangle being back. Always great to get 3 awesome workers in. So, and I'm looking forward to see where Cody goes from here. James?
Yeah, interested to see what they do with Death Triangle. Interested to see what they do with Moxley, coming out of losing the title. And, I wonder who. I really hope that the person they get up in the bullpen eventually to take the title off of Omega is Hangman Adam Page. I'm not saying it needs to be in the next 6 months. I'm not going that far, but it would be cool if, whether it's Double or Nothing, I'm sorry, whether it's All Out or if it's Full Gear, we get to it and they have their return match and he topples this dude and we say like, look what they've done over the past, really like 2 years between Kenny Omega and Hangman Adam Page. So that's what I'm most looking forward to in 2021, All Elite Wrestling. I'm also looking forward to, figuring out, what they're going to do with all these trios.
Yeah, trios belts. I feel like they're on the way. So
or at least a tournament.
Be far off at this point.
Like maybe if not a belt, at least a tournament.
I'd be remiss if I didn't mention AEW Dark all this year, and I watched the majority of them. Just seeing what they've done to give opportunities to lots of independent wrestlers everywhere to stimulate the wrestling economy. There weren't a lot of places to work, and they turned Dark into like this super show every week, basically as a favor to putting a lot of these people in the audience. You give them some television time and you're getting a couple finds on there, like someone like a Will Hobbs and Ricky Starks has been awesome on Dark. Scorpio Sky has been awesome on Dark. They've been bringing wrestlers like left and right. There was a team called Bear Country I just saw last week. It's just like there's tons of great wrestlers everywhere, and Ben Carter they brought in, and he had some great matches. A great match with Lee Johnson, and I think Dark has been a hell of a tool for like them to identify talent and also try things out. Like Britt Baker has her segment, The Waiting Room, on there. I think it'll be on Dynamite at any moment at this point.
So I guess it's time to get into our top 10 matches.
Yeah. It is.
Yeah, Chad, will you start us off?
Number 10. I am going to go with Orange Cassidy versus Chris Jericho from Fyter Fest. Looking across my list, it's looking at ones that stand out amongst the pack, because we're talking about a company that produces 4-star matches on the regular every week. Their pay-per-views are full of them, or at least are expected to be. Jericho versus Orange Cassidy was a diamond in the rough, a microcosm of the year that Orange Cassidy had. An awesome year for Orange Cassidy, zooming into the consciousness of mainstream wrestling fans. He's great. This match is a gem.
My number 10 will be Jon Moxley versus Brody Lee from Double or Nothing. Big fight field title match. Within 2 minutes of the match starting, you're about to see some shit because they're brawling all over the ringside area. There's like they're going through the spades that are set up, and you're saying like, hold on, man, this Brody Lee dude, like, like this is a mountain of a man, and Jon Moxley DDTing him through the stage, and then Brody Lee coming back from that stage, and eventually going down to that chokehold. I won't forget that match. Like, as Shad mentioned, that's going to be one, like, now that even upon reflecting on it from the past couple of days, it's just like, damn, so much of that guy, Brody Lee, is like left on the table. That was Moxley's first like pay-per-view program, and they saved it with the match. They didn't really have much build to work with due to, the compressed nature, but kicked ass.
Number 10 for me, Hikaru Shida versus Britt Baker, April 8th of Dynamite. One of those matches we talked about earlier in Georgia that just stood out. Wasn't really expecting it, and just all of a sudden, like, Britt's having the best match of her career, and Shida's carrying her through, and the nose is busted, is fortuitous, and she as a elite level worker that she has shown herself to be this year, she mugs for the camera and she gets merch off of it. It was a moment where I was like, forget the promos, Like, this is the match that pays off all the work she's done to get to this point, and she's going to be champion, you know, in 9 months to a year, and we're going to look back and be like, this was the start of something.
Chat.
Number 9 for me, Kenny Omega and Hangman Adam Page versus SCU from the Ship of Jericho.
Nice.
Like that Omega and Page won the tag team titles. Probably, in my opinion, the most underrated AEW match all year. I felt that way within the first 3 months of the year. We're talking about the match between Omega and Page and the Lucha Bros from like the next week or 2 weeks later as being far superior to this. And I thought to myself, if you look at the setting of the Ship of Jericho on that cruise liner, awesome, only an AEW type of setting right there. Combined with the work that those two teams did that night. I've rewatched it again. I think it holds up. I think SCU kind of had a disappointing championship reign. So they went out on a bang and got off Omega and Page run to a really hot start.
Number 9, Cody versus Wardlow. The steel cage match in Atlanta. Man, a special night. A night that, like, I started thinking about wrestling shows like over, you know, the past couple years, and it's just like everything came into play that night, from the Battle Royal to the match Chad just mentioned, and then this Cody moonsaulting off the cage, him cutting that promo and the video leaking out. I've never felt more connected to Cody than in that match, and Wardlow is just proven to be the Britt Baker scouting department. Thank her for Wardlow, because Wardlow has come in and not missed since this moment. And this was better than the MJF match. Everything that they missed on for me in the MJF match, they hit on for the Wardlow and Cody match.
Number 9 for me, Darby Allin versus Sammy Guevara at WWE at AEW Revolution. Just an ultimate, like, first half of a undercard match with two dudes that are, you know, you think you have future potential in, and they went out there and they killed it. Just I hope they have another, you know, 5 of these over the next 3 years.
Number 8 for me, Cody Rhodes versus Brody Lee, the dog collar match from the early October Dynamite. I went back and forth. I'm 100% in agreement with everything Rich shot the match with Brody Lee and John Moxley from Double or Nothing. I went back and forth over which to put here, but the enduring memory of this being Brody Lee's last match and how great that feud and rivalry was leading into the fall months. And I'm a sucker for a dog collar match, man. I mean, there's only been a couple in history that have been of note. My second book, The Greatest Matches and Rivalries of the WrestleMania Era, features a nice little chapter back in the 70s or 80s section, being the ranked 70s and 80s, not the decades, of Greg Valentine and Roddy Piper at Starrcade 83. It reminded me of that match. It did so on purpose, apparently. And just a tremendous, if you're gonna close out your career unexpectedly, that's a good way to do it for Brody Lee. And Cody Rhodes certainly, he came to play as usual in those big time situations.
Number 8 for me, the Young Bucks versus the Butcher and Blade, the Falls Count Anywhere match. They showed up, and the Butcher and the Blade have been, we were wondering who the fuck they were when they first came. And then this year, like, they started wearing white and showing just more hints of personality slowly, and proving that they were a really good team in the ring. They were somebody, they didn't need to be the first, second, or third best team in the division, but when they got to wrestle the first, second, and third team, like, it just always was awesome. And this was the best example of it. Wild, crazy brawl all over the arena, crazy stunts, and at the end of the day, the Bucks, like, standing tall on their road back to the titles, and the Butcher and the Blade helped get them there.
Number 8 for me, Riho versus Nyla Rose, AEW Women's Title Match, February 12th. This was a match that, like, I said, I hope they have another 5 of these over the next 3 years. Just I hope they have another 5 of these over the next 3 years. this match was the best version of all the prior matches they had, whether it was a triple threat match that had Yuka Sakazaki in it or their original title match, and it throws in the element of the Kenny Omega relationship with Riho, where you get the Snapdragon suplexes. This was the night of the title change. I felt like it was the right time to pull the trigger on that. And, I felt like Nyla was off to the race at the time. Unfortunately, who knows what they actually had planned or whatever else, but like everything else with COVID, like it screwed up a bunch of stuff, but I thought this was a great match, and like for those two to get over the way they did in Austin, Texas is a hell of a job.
Yeah, absolutely. Number 7 for me, Darby Allin defeating Cody Rhodes to win the TNT Championship at Full Gear, a show that I think I undersold how much I appreciated despite my general dislike of the main event that night. I thought that pay-per-view was awesome, as you'll see from my choices to come. First one from that night, Cody versus Darby. Hell of a match. Absolutely fantastic to me. Another one of those ones destined to be underrated because of the show on which it took place. There were 2 matches that I'll mention momentarily that rightfully were praised as superior to this, but I didn't think that the gap was that wide. This was not a Notre Dame, Alabama gap, so to speak. This was a tremendous match, finally culminating Allen getting the win over Cody. I loved that match. I implore you, go back and watch it again. It will impress you to a little bit greater extent the more you watch it. It's that type of match.
Up next, I've got number 7 would be the Young Bucks versus FTR. This was Lakers versus Celtics, from the uniforms to the wrestling style. And this was a big match that has been built up for years and years. I knew the build, I knew what I saw off TV, and I knew what I saw on TV. And watching this match was just a joyous highlight reel, I think, between 2 awesome opponents. And the Young Bucks would win those AEW tag team titles. It finally felt right. The belts came home where they were supposed to be.
Yeah, we're on 8, right? No, not 8. We're on 6.
7.
I'm not tripping. 7. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm shuffling it between 3 matches right now between its place. So because they're all related to each other. So what I'll do is Adam Page versus Wardlow, AEW World Title Eliminator Tournament semifinal match. It was on the 22nd of October. Opening match, came in, Wardlow, just the future is so bright with that dude. I'm buying as much stock as you can sell on that dude. He ain't missed yet. Hangman in a spot to where he's not with Kenny Omega, he's not with the Young Bucks. And like he's in there with a young guy. Let's see what he can do as far as the quote unquote carrying aspect. And like they went out there and they had an incredible monster versus babyface match that was physical and impressive and athletic. And I can't wait to see what those two have in store for each other over the coming years.
Random note before I get to my number 6. I love how much variation there have been in our choices so far. I'm about to name the first time I actually had something show up on consecutive lists. Number 6 for me, FTR against the Young Bucks at Full Gear. Rich said it was. I'll add that someone wrote about it that it was a love letter to pro wrestling tag teams history. And I think that pretty much says I actually kind of thought it might end up being a little bit higher on my list, but when I rewatched it, I will say that the initial viewing, the magic of the initial viewing, I think I ended up landing somewhere in the middle. If I recall your respective thoughts, James and Rich, after the show, Rich was really, really high. James was still high, but not quite that high. I think I ended up landing somewhere in the middle, but nevertheless, it's my 6th favorite match from AEW in 2020, so it certainly wasn't bad.
Number 6 match for me, the Young Bucks and FTR versus the Lucha Bros and Butcher and the Blade on AEW Dynamite. An absolutely electric, fast, super working match. Something you would have seen on PWG, Canadian Destroyers over the top rope, crazy ass, just like spots with Nick Jackson and Phoenix, and just in the Butcher and the Blade, being awesome, and the Lucha Bros like getting that win there that they needed, and just I thought this was like, as soon as I saw this match, it was like, this is fucking incredible.
Number 6 for me, the other semifinal to the tag team. I'm sorry, to the AEW World Elimination, the world title tournament. I'm sorry. So Kenny Omega versus Pentagon, or sorry, Penta El Cerro Mero. Yeah, just an incredible match. Just they beat the crap out of each other. They wrestled very much in the style that I enjoy watching Kenny Omega wrestle in, which is like, he gets in there with the luchador, and they just go out there and they basically like have like a house show match, except it's physical. It's really fun. It's really fun to watch them do their thing. It seems like they're freestyling. It's kind of effortless, but just enjoyed the hell out of the match. Enjoyed that run that I got out of Pentagon and Phoenix. After complaining and bitching and moaning about like, where the hell are these guys on TV over the summer? Like, for them to come in the fall and lay out those matches, just a blast.
Number 5 for me, Kenny Omega versus Hangman Adam Page at Full Gear. Best opening pay-per-view opening match in AEW history to date. Sets the tone for everyone else to try to follow it. That's the type of small distinction that carries a lot of weight with me personally, and looking at history of promotions, history of pay-per-view, and wrestling in general. I agree with what Rich said shortly after that if 5 more minutes, they were well on their way to a 5-star match. I look forward to the day when they get extra 5 minutes or more, and they have that 5-star match, because I think they've clearly showed that they've got it in them. Great chemistry between these two guys. I mean, if it ends up going down to where we see being the guy, or Page being the guy who upends Omega's title reign, we'll look back at this and have to watch it again and again before we watch the rematch where Page beats him for the championship, because this was tremendous.
Number 5, the parking lot brawl between the Best Friends and Proud and Powerful. One of the best street fights I've ever seen. I heard it was shot all in one take, so this wasn't any cinematic editing. This wasn't, any bullshit. This was 2 teams beating the hell out of each other. Incredible spots, creativity, and just giftable moments, and those are important in this day and age. And I think that for PNP and also Best Friends to get that main event and show that, PNP is waiting to break out at any moment. I would throw them in the list of names to potentially take the belts off the Young Bucks. And Best Friends, who I haven't always been impressed by, but in a street brawl environment, Chucky T's like a god. And also Trent is one of those wired different people. So, yeah, this was awesome.
Number 5 for me, continuing on the tradition of the AEW World Title Eliminator Tournament, I'm going with the first round match between Pentagon and Rey Fenix, brothers destroying each other. I believe the date was I can't remember the broadcast date, but whatever. They went out there and they had a different version of a match me and Rich have seen before in I think that was in New York. They had like a 7-minute match, and it's just like them just doing a bunch of stuff, and like they're calling it as they're going, and there's no real like, it's just brainless awesomeness, and that's what this match was, and I loved it. I just loved it.
Number 4 for me is MJF versus Jungle Boy from Double or Nothing. I only rate it ahead of Omega and Page because Omega and Page, they left something on the table. I think we know that those two guys could have gone 5 minutes longer and had that much better of a match. MJF and Jungle Boy maximized what they were given that night. There is no I can't imagine how that match could have been any better by being any shorter or longer. MJF versus Jungle Boy to date is the perfect example of that second spot on a pay-per-view card, how to just have a match that blows everyone's socks off, that may not be considered the greatest thing in the world on the night of, but that everyone appreciates. And as they look back on it in years to come, they're going to see it as one of the most rewatchable performances in mid-card AEW history. A breakout performance from MJF and Jungle Boy, something that we'll look back on when they're main eventing pay-per-views regularly in the future and say that was the moment we all knew both were going to be there.
Number 4, Kenny Omega versus Hangman Page, the World Title Eliminator Tournament. Just the return of Kenny Omega to pay-per-view as a single. Can Hangman Page really hang on the elite level as a worker? We found that out that night. I think that was one of those Chapter 1 matches, or a great chapter in the story of Kenny Omega and Hangman Page. And this one, it got Kenny into position to challenge for the world title. Hangman it delays his ultimate destination for a while, but he's going to have to go through some stuff to actually get there and beat that guy that he struggled with on this night. And this was this was New Japan imported in the good part of New Japan, not the evil New Japan, not that stuff.
We're at number 4 now, right?
Yeah.
Number 4 for me.
Correct.
Yeah. The Best Friends versus Santana and Ortiz, the backlot brawl. I believe that was on the 16th of September. This match came after, I believe we got this match like the week after we got to us the disappointing title change for FTR beating Hangman and Kenny, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, like, after that match in the thread, because I was looking it up just now, the Social Suplex thread, I was like, there's your 4.5-star tag team match. They a lot of smart stuff that happened in smart thinking for spots. And even cute stuff in the nice storytelling part of the end where Trent's mom at the end and throws a middle finger at those guys after they screwed up her van and tied off and tied that plot off in a nice way. Really enjoyed the effort by those guys. They beat the living crap out of each other, and they came up with something they should be very proud of.
Number 3 for B, Stadium Stampede at Double or Nothing. That was just so much fun, so cathartic, such a necessary cog in the wheel of my life in 2020 and rebounding out of the early pandemic funk and getting back to a better headspace. That just capped off a wonderful night, and rewatching it, it's still a lot of fun. I mean, it's not the type of thing I'm going to queue up on the regular like MJF versus Jungle Boy when I just need to get my wrestling fix of work rate, but it's something that I'll probably watch once a year and have a smile on my face thereafter for 10-20 minutes.
Number 3, Stadium Stampede. This was brilliant. A lot of smart minds in the room putting this together. People that have that are in touch with the world we actually live in, and nothing was forced, nothing was overdone. All the right notes were played between the music to give us what we got. Big night for the elite. Big night for the inner circle. Looking back, like the inner circles, I feel like is on the verge of changing radically. That initial 5-man unit, like that's, that program is where they were standing tall and looking like killers. And this was a great wrestling match. It was a great comedy match. It was a great quote-unquote cinematic match. It was, had everything you wanted.
Number 3 for me, Kenny Omega versus Page at AEW Full Gear, the final of the AEW World Eliminator Tournament world title eliminator tournament. Been building for it for literally about a year, right? From the time they get done with both of them at Full Gear to and they both fail and they find each other as friends, to that tag run, to the breakup, to them basically meeting each other at the top to see who's going to get this title shot. I thought it was a great year of storytelling, and I think by the time we got to the beginning of the match, they end up outside the ring, and Kenny Omega ends up hitting that moonsault off of like that weird staircasing thing. You already knew you were on to something great, and it was just so well paced. I think it was paced that way to where you can get a great match, and they left stuff in the chamber for an eventual return match, and I expect it to be better. I just do. Just we're about to see a lot of Kenny Omega out of the rest of this top three for me.
Yeah.
Ditto. Number 2 for me, the singles match of the year for AEW, Kenny Omega versus Iron Man match from the Go Home show for Revolution. An absolutely fantastic performance from both guys. Probably if you go and you look on Grapple and you just do 2020 and Dynamite, you may find it to be among, if not the highest rated AEW match outside of the number 1 on my list. I think AEW really has given Pac a proper platform to showcase what he can be. Pac is someone who I've always thought was awesome. I just, from the time I watched his match with Sami Zayn at TakeOver Our Evolution and to end 2014, I've been sold on Pac and have bought a lot of Pac stock. His run as Cruiserweight champion, WWE, was amazing. It's been nice to see him have the chance to be a top 10 level guy, to even have a ceiling of being even more than that, to be someone who you could maybe look at as who might get a world title run someday. I mean, he is that good. Everything about Pac, to me, as much as this was obviously a great Kenny Omega match, this was Pac's platform to showcase this is why I can be a top star around the world.
Yeah, man. The first 15 minutes of this match is just lightning speed. And I'm talking about the same match, Pac versus Kenny Omega, number 2. Lightning speed, perfect execution of moves, danger, highlight reel stuff. I'll never forget Pac doing the shooting star press on the Kenny while he was outside the ring laying on a table. And for a 30-minute Iron Man match, the best one I've ever seen. And I can't believe, it's amazing, when you take the single stuff away, how people forget about you, in Kenny's case. And then in Pac, it was the third match of their series where he was kind of the dominant person, leading up. Of course, he got to win the first time and Kenny evened the score, but narratively, Pac, it seemed like Kenny was had his eyes on other stuff, but he always had to deal with that Pac guy. And this was the match where they got to deal with each other. And I don't think you could find a better opponent for either of them in the promotion. Maybe not, I don't know. Maybe there are a couple guys. Yeah,
I agree with that sentiment. There's about as good as opponents they're ever going to get with each other in AEW, with the roster where it is right now. Stop me if you heard this, but my number 2 match is Pac versus Kenny Omega, 30-minute Iron Man match from February 26th. This, you guys already said what your pieces are, so I'm not going to go any further. All I'm going to say is this match is what I thought the promotion was going to be initially, when you get Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks and, other guys that, also have wrestled in the G1 and stuff. This is what I thought the promotion was going to be, and I thought this is what most of the matches were going to be. If you look at my top 10, it is mostly singles matches, and a couple tag matches, but that mostly I thought it was going to be New Japan of America. Obviously not that name because that's their actual name, but I thought it was going to be New Japan West.
New Japan West.
Yeah. And there's still hope for that. This gives me reason to hold on. Please. Please.
I would probably have to challenge you on that. Like, we already got a New Japan. Like, AEW is going to be AEW at this point, and this is part of AEW.
Hey, a man can dream. Don't take my dream away. I'm just talking about stylistically the matches anyway.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I think a good 50-50 split would be nice. Personally, I'd be good with that. Number one for me, what really number one in a lot of years for me, and that's Omega and Page against the Young Bucks at Revolution. We've already talked a little bit about it. There's not a whole lot levels of praise you can't reach when praising this particular piece of performance art, because that's what it is. It is everything that's great about pro wrestling. It is everything that is great about the various styles of pro wrestling. I think that anybody out there on the internet who's saying that the Young Bucks are just spot monkeys need to take a big ration of crow and shove it in their mouth, because these guys are absolutely fantastic storytellers too. All that spot stuff can do it, and it's glorious to watch aesthetically, but they also engage you emotionally with the character work that they put forth. And when you add in everything that Omega and Page were doing as a tag team, particularly Hangman, and the momentum he was building as a character who basically just got over by being independent. That's the story, James, and we've talked about it, trying to better define it on TV, but that's the story. This is a guy who's ready to do it his way and sink or swim it, and all he wants is a shot, and all he wants is an opportunity, but he's conflicted about it because the guys that helped prop him up on the way, he's got an attachment to them like anybody would a mentor. So it was the recipe that they used on the night for Revolution was just one of those nights where everything just clicks. Everything clicks. The time, the character, the selling, the near falls, the climax, the crowd engagement, every single element that makes for an absolute all-time classic match was here in this one, and it's unforgettable.
Number one, Young Bucks versus Kenny Omega and Hangman Page, AEW Revolution. I remember the entrances for all these guys. The Bucks normally are getting cheered everywhere they go. Not tonight. This was Hangman Page's sound. They loved Kenny Omega too, but this was Hangman Page's coming out party. And seeing these guys put that together, I've been I've been following the Elite for years now, and this is the best match the Elite has ever had with each other. This is the best match in the promotion's history. This is the best match of Hangman's career, probably the best match of the Bucks' career as well. And it's just like it adds on to Kenny Omega's like legacy. He just like all the callbacks, all the spots. It's magic, straight up.
Number one. I'm not even going to joke about it. Number one, Kenny Omega and Adam Page versus the Young Bucks. I was going to pull on something like, I don't know, Cody versus Warhorse or something. Be funny, but I'm not even going to do that. Yeah. AEW World Tag Team Title match, Revolution. An incredible match. It is, in my opinion, somewhere in a three-way tie for the best tag matches I've ever seen in my life that are just straight tag matches and traditional tag matches. So regardless of, where you put it, 5-star, 6-star, whatever the hell, it's up there. It belongs in the Pantheon. It deserves to be discussed. It's a match of the year contender.
What the hell on that list?
Huh? Sorry?
What the hell is tied with it?
Golden Lovers versus Young Bucks and Revival versus DIY from Brooklyn. No, not Brooklyn, but Toronto. Those would be the three best tag matches I've ever seen, in my opinion. So yes,
and they're tied.
Depends on my mood on the day.
Okay, fair enough. Okay,
like pretty much it'd be like whichever one I saw last time, I'd be like, oh damn, that's the best one. That's probably how it works out for me. Yeah, so that, I mean, you guys have already took the cake. Like, it's an incredible match layered with storytelling and athleticism and just great sense of having the crowd in its palms and just taking on a ride.
Yeah, man.
You know what this further evidence is, right? This further evidence is that pro wrestling greatness is not totally subjective. For the 1,000th time.
Yeah, man. Like, it's just when you start grading all that stuff out, like, that match hits on a level that's, like, very rare, to say the least. And I've watched it at least 3 times, maybe 4. It's never dropped off for me, and it's like, I remember where I was watching it. I remember how the crowd felt coming through the television first time I watched it. I only wish I was there in the building. Oh, well.
Oh, I've only watched it live that one time in, like, the same thing for the Young Bucks in Golden Lovers match was like, I've only watched it one time. I'm not gonna, like, I'll go back and I'll watch him someday eventually, but it's like, what I need to go back for? I already know in my mind is it no worse than 3? It's no worse than top 3 for me. I don't need to see this shit again not that often. I might wear off the magic. So, I'm glad that you've watched it a few times and it still holds up to that magical level. So that's great. But like, I don't need to go, like when we do like Baton and Walter, I've only watched Baton and Walter twice. Yeah. I don't need to go back. I don't need to see Shingo and Ospreay, more than twice. I'm good. Like, we'll go back to it eventually if I ever need to do some like best of ONR era, like decade of podcasting thing. But I'm good. I remember how good that fucking match is. It's going to take something incredible to be able to be on pace with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Chad, I want to thank you for going overtime with us on this podcast. Can you give us your plugs, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure, guys. Plugs. Well, I've restarted the Doc Said podcast. It is now just covering a wide range of topics. It's underway. I've done about 3 or 4 different shows thus far, and it encompasses a lot of different topics, pro wrestling among them, which will become probably a bigger topic coming up as we enter what is, in my life, wrestling season, beginning with Wrestle Kingdom coming up in a few days. You can reach me at what the heck is my Twitter handle right now? It's Chad McIntyre 13.
That sounds
you
right.
You can listen to the Doc Says. The Doc Says is available on every platform. So just do a search for the Doc Says. You'll find it. Yeah. I mean, that's pretty much it. You can always check out the books I've written in the past on wrestling history, trying to posit that wrestling greatness is objectively subjectifiable. The greatest matches and rivalries of the WrestleMania era previously mentioned, the WrestleMania era, the Book of Sports Center, as well, ranking the greatest wrestlers of the WrestleMania era. So yeah, thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
No doubt, man.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, I guess I'll wrap it up from here. Thanks for listening to the show. Be sure to rate us on whatever app you're using to listen to this with. Be sure to tell the folks about Social Suplex Podcast Network. Be sure to visit ProWrestlingTees.com/Social Suplex and pick up some official Social Suplex Podcast Network merchandise. And be sure to check out the other shows on the network, or all the shows on the network. On Sundays, we have One Nation Radio. On Tuesdays, we have Keepin It Strong Style. On Wednesdays, we have the Ricky and Clive Wrestling Podcast. On every other Wednesday, we have Gorman Watch This Shit. On Thursdays, we have the Grave Consequences Podcast. On Fridays, we have 8-Bit Suplex. On Saturdays, we have All Things Elite. And on Sundays, we have Great Match Generator. Thanks for listening, y'all. Later.